time. So he comes and wakes me up, and this is derived from a fact that a couple weeks ago he actually was sick. He wasn't feeling well, so he had to go out and use the restroom, which I appreciate. Please let me know when you have to go outside. I don't want to clean that up ever again. If you have a puppy and you do that, it sucks. Well, I've enabled him to the point now where he just is used to going outside at 3:30 or 4 a.m., and all he wants to do is play. And he's no longer sick. He doesn't need to use the bathroom, but he's like programmed to believe that 3:30 to 4 o'clock is playtime in the morning.
He's just seen that that's a possibility.
Correct.
And now is all in on it. Yeah. I mean, you got to put the foot down. You got to be the dad. In the dog dad situation.
It's so hard. He's the cutest dog. He's the cutest dog. And so, I mean, unfortunately, what it's led to is me standing out in the front yard in my North Face jacket and no pants because I basically sleep unencumbered is how I'll put that.
Of course.
And if he's just going to the bathroom, it's not a big deal. But if he wants to play, I'm standing on my front porch praying that my neighbor doesn't come outside because I might get arrested.
Yeah.
That's what your boy's dealing with on a Tuesday, Porter.
You're gonna have to figure that out, or just make it part of your sleep schedule and just cave to the dog.
Good advice. Hello, happy Tuesday. Weird start to the show, but it's Sports Talk Radio. Sitting here on a Tuesday afternoon with actually a lot to do. The NFL Combine getting ready to get going, and so the NFL Draft right around the corner. As a result, several NFL executives interviewed today with some interesting things to say about some offseason plans with Max Crosby and the Raiders, with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and Breece Hall and the New York Jets. So we actually have some NFL offseason I wanted to get to on the program today. We saw an awesome NBA game last night. Did not feature the Utah Jazz. That game was not awesome. But I'll tell you what, man, the San Antonio Spurs have now won 9 straight basketball games. I love the Pistons. Historically speaking, as a Knicks fan, of course, I don't love the organization. They just want to fight you. They want to fight everybody. And San Antonio, and we're going to get into this today because as the Jazz inch closer and closer to being a competitive basketball team, spoiler alert, that will not be this year. Last night was such a joke. The Rockets were up by like 40. Look, you know what? Never mind. It's not even worth talking about. A couple of things from the game worth talking about. An unfortunate injury as a result of a kind of a cheap shot play in my mind. So we'll get to that news for Utah Jazz fans. But watching the Spurs, the way they have gone about building this basketball team, and yes, they have needed some luck, and the Jazz essentially are going to need some luck at some point as well. They're unbelievably deep. It's not just Wembanyama. They've got 8 players averaging 10 points or more, and they went to Detroit, and they won rather handily. It was an 11-point win, a little bit back and forth. We got a good game tonight. Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers hosting the New York Knickerbockers out of the Eastern Conference. Good NBA night, actually, all across. So we'll do some NBA basketball on the program today on this Tuesday edition of The Drive, where, of course, as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We got some college hoops tonight. Utah is back in action, hosting a very good Iowa State team, of course, looking to bounce back after losing to BYU and Provo over the weekend. And UCF, that beat Utah and Salt Lake, makes the trek down to Provo to take on BYU. BYU moved up to number 19 in the AP poll. 3 of the top 5 teams in college basketball are out of the Big 12, and 6 Big 12 teams overall are in the top 25. It's an incredibly, I mean, it's like impossible, and it's impossible to predict. Houston has lost 3 straight games. I've seen Houston up close twice. They are awesome. Kansas gets that done last night. Bill Self 41-0 big Monday games. Darren Peterson did decide to show up to play, and Kansas, when fully healthy, is as good as Houston or Arizona or Iowa State. I mean, this is a bear of a conference. So we'll get to some college basketball storylines as we're just a few weeks away from Selection Sunday and March Madness nearly upon us. So we'll get you ready for the game tonight. Spring football is starting for BYU coming up in a matter of days. We're kind of waiting to hear the official word from Utah. So, of course, spring football in the world of college football, always topical. It's been a couple of days, but the sports world continues to buzz about the fact that the gold medal in men's hockey now exists in the United States. And I'm not going to get into the political discussion of this because it's exhausting. But the men's hockey team visiting the White House, women's hockey team declined the invite, and now people on cable news are losing their minds about everything. Not a space I'm really interested in because I just thought it was a really cool moment. Regardless, of your belief system or political leanings, those young men gave us all something to be proud of with that incredible win over Canada. If you missed our conversation with Nick Olachek yesterday, I would encourage you to go to the website, to go to the podcast page. I thought Nicky was awesome yesterday, giving us some good perspective. All right, we'll start things off today with our college football insider from The Athletic. He loves it when I say that. Chris Camerati will join us in studio for an hour. I always enjoy my conversations with CK. Get you ready for a big one tonight for the Utes, Iowa State in town, 7 o'clock Mountain Time on FS1. Of course, you can hear it here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. And the voice that you will hear on the game tonight, you will hear on this show today as Bill Riley is our guest coming up at 3:30. Latest on the NBA, the Utah Jazz with Tim McMahon. And then Adam Miklich, our friend from KUTV, who I've been working with now for a few weeks. We do Adam and Spence every Sunday night. We do some hits throughout the course of the week on KUTV. Adam, really nice guy, really good sports broadcaster locally. We'll get to know Adam a little bit more in this space. On a Tuesday afternoon, Chris Camerati, Bill Riley, Tim McMahon, Adam Miklich, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And that young man, you've already heard from him, but let's bring him in now. Porter Larson. Have you watched the Detroit Pistons much this year?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Obviously, I think we mentioned them a few weeks ago. They're not necessarily featured on national television all that much, but I like to catch them on the occasion that they are. And man, Cade Cunningham is legitimate. He is a real piece that I think we were both pretty high on in the draft process, but it just, we weren't sure how much of fruition it would come to being in Detroit. They've actually surrounded him with some good players, and it's starting to look like they got something real going.
Yeah, so let's do some NBA right off the top. We've been very critical, and I think it's deserved for a organization that is somewhat unserious about its product for about 5 months, and employees that don't show up to work, and all the things. Last night was a reminder of what this game can look like when two teams are all about it. So on a Tuesday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
You can shoot your shot on Prize Picks, and you get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks available in Utah. So that's a really fun thing if you want to maybe put a little cheddar down on some Jazz players. New feature alert. Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700. Hook you up with $50 after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, little NBA from last night, and then we'll get to some college football storylines with CK live in studio. Couple of quick thoughts on the Jazz game. Only 25 games left for the Jazz. This is an unserious organization once again for the fourth straight year. It is unwatchable. I think that was only one of 2 nationally televised games. And honestly, the Jazz deserve 0 nationally televised games this year. It was over rather quickly. I tuned in. We'll get to the early game. There was actually 2 teams that are not just serious about competing, but are here now to win the entire thing. So after watching that awesome Spurs-Pistons game, it was just another reminder of how horrific it is to watch the Jazz, and has been for quite some time. But a couple of things. I don't know where Ace Bailey was last night. As we've talked about over the final 25 games, you can view this a little bit like an audition for the younger players to show Will Hardy that they deserve to be around for the long haul. Because we know Markkanen's going to be around. I think Walker Kessler will be around. My anticipation is they bring him back and match any contract he's given. Jaren Jackson Jr., of course. So that's your 3-headed front court that I think is going to be really fun and tough to deal with for Western Conference teams. Keontae George, once again, sat out last night. I think it's pretty clear the Jazz have done their calculation and believe that he's part of the future. Other than that, there is nobody that is guaranteed anything, at least in my opinion. Obviously, the veteran players with Kevin Love and Svi Mikhailuk, guys like that. I mean, Yusuf Nurkic's now out for the season, but these are salary fillers that may be around for the end of the bench if you need to pay some veteran players, but I believe Ace at some point has a chance to be a really, really good player. But these final 25 games, if he's going to get, 25, 30 minutes or more, I just got to see him put a stamp on a game instead of just being a wallflower. There are too many sets, and maybe this is by design, so I'm not really coming down on Ace. Maybe this is Will's deal, where Ace is simply a distraction standing in the corner in the case the defense collapses where he can get an open three. He's too good to be used as simply it's like the way Frank Layden used to use Mark Eaton to get the illegal defense. Like, Mark, you go stand outside the three-point line because we know you're not much of an offensive threat. And the old rules back in the day, it would pull out the other big, and that way John and Carl could kind of do their thing. And they're using Ace as like a distraction, and I'm watching this game almost exclusively to see him. Because when it comes to Cody Williams or Kyle Filipowski or Isaiah Collier, maybe Bryce Sensabaugh, maybe. I mean, those are the guys that have to utilize their chances down the stretch to show Will that they belong. Ace is here. I believe the Jazz have done their calculation on Ace and believe that he's part of the long-term plan. So utilize this opportunity to put your stamp on the game. He played 27 minutes. He had 4 points. He took 9 shots, only made 2 of them, missed both of his threes. Did have 8 boards. That was second to Kevin Love, who had 9. Had a couple of steals. But on offense, I don't know. He's young, right? And we're going to wait to see if he can figure this thing out. But he is the one thing that really is worth watching. And last night, just way too many minutes where he just looked like another rotational piece without putting his stamp on the game. All right, the other really unfortunate thing, and this is more than just a vacuum snapshot. Oh, wow, that really sucks. So Tari Eason from the Houston Rockets, there was a fast break where Tari Eason and Vince Williams Jr., and I'm watching in real time, and I see that Vince kind of fell. And my instant reaction was, that didn't look good at all. My instant reaction was, what was Eason doing? That looked kind of dirty. And then did his knee lock up? And then they showed the replay, and you went, oh, my gosh, he looks like he just did his knee. And in my opinion, and Will talked about this after the game, Sarah Todd, who was our guest yesterday, was actually the first to report this. Not a basketball play, dirty play. And I wouldn't mind if Tari Eason is punished here a little bit, because here's really what this comes down to. Jazz fans are just getting to know Vince Williams Jr. He was part of the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. It's actually a really cool story for a guy that was kind of not thought to be much of an NBA prospect. He's worked his tail off to turn himself into like a decent 3-and-D piece. He can really guard on the perimeter. Like, in my opinion, like John Conchar, we know who John Conchar is. They moved on from the big. They sent him to Atlanta. He was never part of the plans. I think the Jazz traded, obviously, for Jaren Jackson Jr., first and foremost, but Vince Williams Jr., in my opinion, more than a throw-in. I think the Jazz traded for him with the thought that he might be around. And here's what really sucks. This is a contract year for him, okay? So, torn ACL, out for the season, but the average recovery time, 10, 11 months, and that's aggressive. So what Tari Eason did to Vince Williams Jr. last night isn't just costing him a chance to show who he is over the final 25 games of the season. It may have cost him millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I'm not being hyperbolic here. This is a contract year. And it is a cutthroat business when a player gets hurt. There is no loyalty. That's why sometimes the player empowerment conversation, we're like, hey, how dare you leave that organization to go sign somewhere else? Well, as you age, or if you get hurt, they'll cut you and not even think twice and say best of luck in your future endeavors. And so I don't know what this means for Vince Williams Jr. I mean, obviously he's young. He's got plenty of years ahead of him. But this was a contract year. And the conversation around him was he had finally earned a deal that could pay him what he deserved for all the work that he's put in. So I thought that moment was such a bummer. We did see some good shot making from Sensabaugh, who had 26, but ultimately, it was not close. It was over more or less after the first quarter, and the Jazz lose by 20. And high speed ahead keeping that pick. All right, real quick. The Detroit Pistons are here to fight everybody, and I am all about it. Isaiah Stewart is suspended for the fight they had a few weeks ago. So he was not involved last night. Jalen Duren, though, I feel like every time I see a Jalen Duren or an Isaiah Stewart highlight, they are running off the bench to fight you. So I do think Detroit, and they made the playoffs a year ago. They lost to the Knicks in 6. They could have won that series if a couple of things went their way, and they own New York this year, by the way. The East is wide open. Detroit has a chance to get it done. They'll get their players back from suspension. Cade Cunningham last night, he struggled. And there was a snapshot moment where he was so sick of Stephon Castle, he just pushed him to the ground. And then there was a little bit of a fracas. Keldon Johnson came in the mix. When Keldon Johnson stepped up, Jalen Duren just said, "Don't, dude. Like, do you see how big I am? You just walk that way." And it was a great physical back and forth basketball game. These two teams are really good and really young, and they're going to be good for a long, long time. But I think it's time to talk about San Antonio in a much different way than we have prior to. Oklahoma City is the favorite because they're the defending champs, and when they're healthy, they're impossible. But the way San Antonio has gone about their business to build this roster around Victor Wembanyama, who is the story, of course, and when he was available to be drafted, the Jazz won, 32 games and drafted, 8th or 9th? Way to go. High five. But they have 8 players right now that average 10 points or more, and then Luke Cornett is at 7.5 points. Like, they go 10, 11 deep. It's not just Wembanyama. De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Julian Champagnie, Dylan Harper is a rookie, Harrison Barnes is a champ. Like, it's not just Wembanyama. They've got dogs at guard. They've got 9 or 10 guys that can get their own bucket. And last night is a reminder of what NBA basketball can look like when two really good young teams don't give a rip about being homies and friends with each other, and they actually go out and compete. And if this is your NBA Finals preview, I mean, give me 7 of those, man. That was a lot of fun last night. We have some good NBA basketball tonight that we'll get to later on with Tim McMahon, but we'll catch our first break of a Tuesday show. And coming up next, our college football expert and insider. He loves it when I say that. Chris Camerani is our guest. Keep it here on a Tuesday on ESPN 700. Utah basketball back in action tonight. Iowa State at the Huntsman Center. Iowa State lost to BYU in Provo over the weekend. UCF beat the Utes. Now they're down in Provo to take on BYU. We have some college hoops tonight. Good night of NBA basketball as well, but it's time. Our college football insider and expert from The Athletic, Chris Kamrani. Hello, CK.
How are we?
Is that, I know you don't like that, but I feel like that is apropos, an accurate way of introducing you.
I'm not really an insider of any sort of knowledge. It doesn't really fit my mantra, does it? Like, I like stories and I like doing my job well, but insider kind of feels charlatanish.
Okay.
Especially in this era where, like, there are actual insiders and then there are people who pretend they are.
It is charlatanish. My favorite one is like an actual newsbreaker breaks news.
Yeah.
And then you see all the fakes like, hey, can confirm.
Confirmed.
Yeah, confirmed. League sources confirm.
I'm always asking our text chain if this can be confirmed.
I know, and which I appreciate because things do need to be confirmed. But this ecosystem is pretty interesting now. Once upon a time, it felt like there were a lot of people in the industry that actually could break news based off of relationships. And now there's people have monopolized it. You know, like it was Woj for a while. Now it's Shams in the NBA. You have a little bit of an arms race in the NFL with like Rappaport and Schefter.
Yeah.
Jeff Passan is the baseball guy. And then everybody is just left to see a piece of breaking news, quote tweet it, and say, my sources can confirm. You liar.
Well, my favorite thing is this kind of confluence of the news breaking with the not so gentle massaging of information passed on by either the franchise organization or the agent.
Yeah.
It's like, who can I use as an example? J.J. McCarthy, who is coming off an ACL, who the Vikings believe is going to be their next franchise quarter. It's like, come on, dude. We know who's telling you stuff and why. It's like it doesn't need to be that.
Yeah.
But that's definitely kind of received a groundswell in recent years as well. You can tell that this is for some, this is a information trading business.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay on the right side of things, not saying this is right or not, but if you want to stay on the right side of things and people, you kind of have to sometimes massage things,
sure,
so to speak.
Sure.
Do
is.
People care about this?
I don't know. I think it's an interesting ecosystem now, though, because aggregators have gotten involved and they'll take one sentence, I say, and throw it out there.
Sure.
Like, did you hear what Spence said? Like, no, we spent 15 minutes actually unpacking it.
We're going to cancel you today.
Who knows? I feel like there's half the market that would love if I was canceled. Or like a screenshot of one sentence that's written instead of talking about the entire piece. And
the Gordon Witt column was a perfect example.
Right. Exactly. And then people freak out about a headline and don't read the story. Mm-hmm. It actually happened after the U.S. Hockey game against Canada, where the head coach of Canada, he was talking about how 3-on-3 overtime hockey is not hockey.
Which is accurate, by the way.
But then he went on to unpack it about the fact that we all know the rules. We used it to win a game.
Right.
But there's a reason it doesn't exist in the Stanley Cup playoffs or the Stanley Cup finals because it's not really what hockey's all about. But, of course, everyone who wanted to be mad,
everyone's looking for a reason,
Canada's coach complains about 3-on-3 and overtime. Like, read the entire thing, like unpack it entirely.
Yeah, you know that.
That's where it's gone. Let's see. Well, we'll save the lads for later on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw that starting 11. I was like, wait, am I watching a Monarchs game? We'll do that later, though.
That's good.
Let's start with this piece that you forwarded me by your colleague, Stephen Nesbitt, how Salt Lake City evolved into a sports boom town and Major League Baseball expansion frontrunner. Very comprehensive, very well done, by the way. I would encourage people to go to The Athletic, probably just search Stephen's name, right?
Yeah.
Best way to do it.
It is, kind of written under the umbrella of the hopeful MLB expansion. So
right.
The MLB page or even the Jazz page, because the Jazz are mentioned, it will be there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of dig into this a little bit. You helped him out as the local, right? So let's get origin story. How did this all kind of come about?
Well, Stephen is one of our top enterprise writers on the baseball desk.
Okay.
He's written some of the best baseball stories that The Athletic has had in the last 10 years. And he reached out to me. I can't remember when he first told me he was coming out, but I told him, awesome, can't wait to see you. He actually worked on the Trapper story, the Salt Lake Trapper story with Bill Murray back in the day.
Shout outs.
It was a very fun story. Actually went on to become a sports documentary. But Stephen wanted to come out here because he's kind of in charge of going boots on the ground, reporting for all of these hopeful MLB expansion cities, Portland, Nashville, Salt Lake. So when he told me he was coming out, I said, these are some of the folks you want to talk to. And to his credit, like, Stephen, definitely owned it and got basically everybody to talk to him, which is pretty hard. I mean, like, he was here for, I'm trying to think. I mean, I know you guys are going to try to get him on the show later in the week, but he wasn't here very long, and he got pretty much every heavy hitter when it comes to the politician realm, the sports power business realm, and basically painted this picture of what a lot of folks locally have been preaching locally for the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years, is that Utah is on the precipice of being kind of the next sports boom town. And obviously with the Mammoth here, that's one thing. I think you need another one.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need, and we're going to involve the lads in this.
Of course we are.
You need 4.
Yeah.
You need 4, and Stephen did a really good job of explaining kind of the demographics of what the west side, what it would represent for the west side of Salt Lake, because that has historically been kind of a forgotten area. Like, once upon a time, your dad wanted to put the soccer stadium over there.
Yep.
Deloy wanted to put the Monarch Stadium over there as well, what it would mean to that side. So it was a really well put together piece, kind of explaining the confluence of, the growth that we have here versus these very grandiose ambitions when it comes to laying out what could be next for us.
For sure. And you reference all the people he was able to get a hold of, including one Stuart Adams.
Yep.
Quote, "We need baseball to kind of round it out," Stuart Adams said. Utah Senate president, quote, "Then we'll go after something else later, that other sport," alluding to the NFL potentially coming here. Now, that is far down the line. But Stuart Adams was an interesting get based off of how he's been intertwined interestingly in the tapestry of our sporting market.
I mean, everybody is here, and that's a byproduct of, I think, like, my guy Bill Oram, friend of the show.
Shout out.
He's spent a long time here, is now the columnist at the Oregonian. He actually tweeted Stephen's story out today and said, like, this is what Portland is lacking when it comes to having basically everybody on board.
Oh, okay.
Everybody swimming in the same direction. Like, you have Senate leaders, legislators, sports teams owners. Talk to Murph. Like, he's got Dale Murphy.
Yep.
Dale Murphy, I think has ties to Portland too, but like, he, this is his home. So the fact that, everybody is rowing in the same direction, so to speak, when it comes to trying to get this next sports franchise here, just goes to show how serious they are. Now, again, does it happen? That's probably a question for Stephen, who's way more informed on that front than I am. But I think it's a fascinating fit for a lot of reasons. I would love to see it just on the west side. I mean, like, dude, you talking about, are we pre-gaming at the Iguana? Probably not, because your gut is gonna be maybe a little too full.
We could, though,
of the Amarillo.
We could mix it in, though, from time to time. No, it would be a great spot for it. He talked to Steve Starks. He talked to the Miller Group. He talked to Ryan Smith. And it's interesting that he was able to get Ryan because of I'm not saying it's the Hatfields and McCoys, but there's a thing with the Millers in the Smith Group, because I think Ryan is the one that wanted to be the baseball group to get baseball here. I think if there's going to be a sports team in Utah, I think Ryan just wants to own all of it. But the Millers, as a result of their experience and then deciding just to, liquidate everything and put themselves in a position where they're flush with cash, and then their relationships with people as far as being able to build a state-of-the-art facility, a quote-unquote test run with the new stadium out in Daybreak for the Salt Lake Bees.
Are we going to go?
No. But I'll go if it's here. Driving at Daybreak, dude. There's no direct flights. But, and he does a really good job of outlining what I have been told, and that is this is turnkey. This is, shovel in the ground as soon as they have the green light. And I do feel like that's what other markets also lack. I mean, I think based off of this and everything I've been told, it feels like we're just ready to go.
Well, and what Stephen did a really good job of is explaining to the non-Utah residents / non-Utah sports fans of the situation that, Ryan getting a bunch of taxpayer money to basically redo downtown and the Delta Center.
Yep.
I don't know if this was planned or not. You'll have to ask him when you have him on, but it might have been fortuitous that Steven was in town the day that they announced that the Winter Classic was going to take place at Rice Eccles.
Yeah.
So he was up there, so he was able to talk to Ryan. I think Steven went to a Mammoth game and talked to some hockey fans for this as well. I believe he went to a Jazz game and might have talked to some Jazz fans. I don't remember. But, yeah, it is very turnkey. But, again, I think, you kind of have to proceed with caution with these things because you don't know what the timeline is necessarily, especially when it comes to expansion. Because once upon a time, people were assuming, the Rays are going to leave Tampa. Maybe that's the move. Or maybe John Fisher's bleep show in Vegas falls through and the A's need another place to play. Obviously, those two things have been sorted out. But I think if you're looking at the landscape of hopeful MLB expansion franchise locations, I would say Salt Lake City is probably at the top in terms of the turnkey perspective.
One of the things that Steven leans into is this intentional endeavor by some to change the way Utah is looked at across the landscape of the state and the world, quite frankly, because of the Olympics in 2002. And dispel false narratives in a way, and then also just kind of maybe embrace the oddities that are just undeniable about Salt Lake and Utah. I don't know how you balance that, because there are things, and you and I have discussed this before, there are things that people from the outside looking in believe that happen here that absolutely do not. Mm-hmm. There are things that people that are unfamiliar with LDS culture believe still permeate throughout the course of the Latter-day Saints that absolutely do not. And I have personal experience with this, moving from Salt Lake to Connecticut as a youth, and asked multiple times how many mothers I have and how many wives my father has and other things like that. So there's a reality to misconceptions that exist outside of here. But there's an undeniable oddity to the market that will never escape, right? I just don't know how you really balance those two things.
Well, I mean, this place is simultaneously, I think, two worlds. If you're talking about Salt Lake City proper, you're talking about a blue dot in a red ocean. I think per capita, it is probably one of the most blue cities in the country. And when you're talking about the proper city itself, then you go outside, it's probably the most conservative state in the country as well. So, yes, those preconceived notions are always going to be held, but I think there is an argument to be made that the more doors or televisions you open up to people that don't know, so if we get a baseball team here, fans in, I don't know, Minnesota, the Twins, I mean, that's probably, I don't know if we would be AL or NL, but any market that maybe isn't all that familiar with this, place could eventually, it can be like, hey, we're going to add this to our list of, everybody wants to go tour every ballpark.
Yeah.
Come check it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once you get here, it kind of hits you in that it is unfortunate that in 2026 we still have to explain that to people or convince them hey, come check it out. But this, all of the NBA beat writers, they're like, oh, Salt Lake's one of my favorite stops on the beat.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's clean. It's nice. Good restaurants. Good arena. It is a tangible feeling to just check it out. But unfortunately, we are still kind of swimming upstream in that sense.
Well, and I'll stand up for Salt Lake forever, and I have for a long time with friends often, and still we have our 30th high school anniversary coming up next summer.
Hey, mazel, dude.
Yeah, and it's wild. As we're kind of reconnecting, I've had more than a few people say things like, "When are you coming home?" I'm like, I am home. I've lived here for 25 years. My family's still back there, but
you're kind of like me, where you have multiple
sure.
areas.
And I love the East Coast. I love the Northeast. I'm from the right coast, right? As I always like to say.
New Canaan.
And I miss it. But I love that my family's there, so I can go see it, because I very much love living in Salt Lake. I've had opportunities to move. It would have to be a really, really sweet gig for me to leave Salt Lake City, and so I'll stand up for it at all times. But I also have this background, where I understand culturally what the LDS experience is. And I have friends and family that are LDS that I love dearly. And they, for all of the things that people might run into if they come out here, maybe not, used to that experience, none of that is anything I have to traverse. But I also try to make it very a parent that I understand what that experience could be like if you're not LDS, even though in Salt Lake or Summit County, Park City, it's different. I think the last census was like less than 30% of Salt Lake is LDS.
Yeah.
But no matter where you live in the state of Utah, you're going to have to learn to traverse that culturally a little bit, but also understand they're not going to hit you over the head. I think that's another thing people believe if they come here.
I agree. And I think one thing I think everyone in the state has done a much better job at, I would say probably in the last 10 to 15 years, is just having more general acceptance on both sides.
Yeah.
And having those conversations that once upon a time were not all that commonly held. There were, and this, once upon a time, when I moved here, we're getting in the weeds a little bit, but there were families that disowned their kids for leaving the church
For sure.
and stuff like that. And I just feel like
I know plenty of these kids.
and I feel like that's becoming less and less pervasive as the state grows. You have, generally, more accepting folks within, I think, the predominant culture in the state. But it's interesting you bring this up because your boy had one of his greatest journalistic accomplishments in the last week.
Oh, really? Do tell.
I got a statement from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for a story.
You're doing the Parker Kingston
No.
story. Oh, wait.
This is about the chant story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Check it out.
Okay. So, it's up right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Okay.
I even retweeted it.
All right.
You're always giving
Wow.
me flack.
Okay.
I didn't. I retweeted. I didn't tweet.
You were
I did it with my colleague Justin Williams.
That's right, Justin. Okay, because I saw the headline.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a minute. So Chris, of course, is referring to the F the Mormons chant that has permeated throughout several Big 12 and other schools as well for BYU and football, basketball games. He wrote on that. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's kind of stick with this, and then we'll catch our break. We'll get to that on the other side. So when it comes to a lot of the things that Stephen points out, like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, or like the Secret Lives of Mormon, whatever, like those reality shows that are out there that millions and millions and millions of people watch across the landscape of the country. My question to you is this: are they helping or are they hurting?
See, that's a great question, and honestly, it's part of something that I am working on ahead of March Madness, because I think there is this two-pronged approach where when it comes to pop culture and entertainment, Utah, and whether it's current members of the church or former members of the church, really have a stranglehold on a lot of people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
My sisters in California have only been here once for my wedding.
Yeah.
Their favorite housewives, far and away, Salt Lake.
Yeah.
When I told them that I saw a housewife at Harmon's recently, I sent them a photo. They were agog. They were freaking out.
Will you tell me which one?
Off air.
Okay.
It is interesting. The help hurt part is it's entertainment, man, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a little more in your face. It's probably knocking you over the head a little more than sports. But there is this. Bill. I'm going to keep bringing up Bill. Bill brought up that one of the guys that's going to be on The Bachelorette for Taylor Frankie Paul was a guy that played at Highland High School, Lou Evans.
Okay.
Played at Utah State before going to Tennessee. Guy we covered in high school.
Wow. Taylor Frankie Paul, is she a housewife?
She's a secret one.
Okay. See, I need to. I will admit.
She's the new Bachelorette. But my point.
Oh, okay.
But my point is that you're having a former Utah high school player.
Yeah.
Who I think Highland won in 2011. No, sorry to offend the Bountiful Braves.
Yeah, it's messed up.
But everything here is intertwined, man.
Yeah.
It is very fascinating, and the intersection between pop culture and sports and entertainment and the church, it gets tricky at times.
Yeah, there's a fascination with Mormon culture that exists throughout the course of the country that is undeniable. But I just wonder, because the point of, not the only point, but one of the things Stephen was trying to do, or one of the things that was uncovered in what he wrote, is what I should say, is how many people like Ryan or the Miller organization, one of the goals they're trying to accomplish is to show Utah in a much different light than it's been shown in the past. And I just wonder how possible is that when it comes to all of these things that are very, very public and, in my opinion, not a great look. Like the Real Housewife stuff, I'll be honest. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this out because maybe they'll showcase our city and our community in a way that actually reflects what I believe we are. And within one episode, I'm like, I can't do this. This is mind-numbing. I'm dumber for watching this after 10 minutes.
Such a hater, man.
Well, they didn't show anything that was like real about who we are. And I have never seen the real secret whatever stuff.
That's the real one.
I have family on that show.
I know you do.
And I have not seen a minute of it, nor will I ever watch it. So I'm just, look, we're not going to land the plane on one answer because that's why, to me, this conversation is fascinating. Is it possible for well-intentioned, I mean, he's also getting $1 billion in taxpayer money.
Yep.
So well-intentioned is hard to say because is that a shield and a smokescreen for all the money he's getting in the back? But if we take these people at their word, they want Utah to shine to the country and to the world. Is it possible for it to shine the way they want to based off the oddities that both exist and are magnified?
Yeah. I mean, I think
amplified, I should say.
I think eventually, yes, just because of the fact that we are one of the fastest growing states in the country. I think St. George, if I'm not mistaken, is like perennially like top 5 fastest growing, small markets in the country. I think the Heber Valley is now like one of the most expensive places in the country to live. And this is not taking place due to the fact that like Mormons are having more kids or Latter-day Saints are having more kids or the fact that people are moving back. It's because people are moving from outside of the state. I mean, Utahns aren't happy, man. They're shaking their fists at those Californians.
Oh, yeah.
They're blaming them for everything.
Absolutely, yep.
But I do think there is a time when like things can eventually get there. It is interesting because I feel like Utah is maybe one of the last states in the country that is still like having to actively dispel all these things just because of the predominant culture. It's like it's among the most unique places because of that. Like I don't think of like any other place that has a similar market size that's dealing with something similar.
Yeah, and it is as a result of how most people directly tie LDS people to living in Utah. Mm-hmm. And, even we just talked about the census. We're now in Salt Lake. It's less than 30%. Yeah. That would blow most people's minds across the country because no matter who you are, okay, if you travel anywhere in the United States and you're at an Applebee's grabbing a steak, as one does,
bloomin' onion,
and you sit down next to a fella and he asks you where you're from, and you say Utah, what's the first thing he asks you? 100% of the time. Yep. 100% of the time.
Me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And respectfully, you don't really look the part. I'm central casting, bro.
Yeah, you're current central casting. Historical central casting. Accurate central casting.
We could get into the battles with the Lamanites if you'd like. But it is the only place in America, like, if you're from Wisconsin, they don't say, are you Lutheran? I mean, Mormonism is linked to Utah. No matter where you go, where you're from, Utah, are you Mormon? I would present Florida as a state that has to dispel some oddities, but it doesn't have to do with religion.
Florida Man on HBO.
Yes.
Very good show.
Oh, so good.
We just found it recently, and
so
it's
good.
Like the perfect 20-minute like little bite of like, dude, people are incredibly insane.
Right. And maybe Florida can't dispel... Wasn't Tiger King in Florida? I can't remember.
So.
Maybe Florida, maybe it's impossible to dispel the lunacy because it's actually real. That's why the Florida Man headlines are just so perfect.
Yeah.
But yes, we are kind of the only state in the Republic that has this link tied to it. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but there are a lot of people that have preconceived notions of what the LDS Church is and represents and how Mormons act and the way that they quote unquote force their beliefs on people. And if you don't live the way they live, they look at you a different way.
Latter-day Saints,
excuse me. And some of that does exist. We can't deny it. But I think the overall growth and evolution of the culture, at least in my experience, is much different than it was when I was growing up, dude.
Easily. I mean, much different in the last, like I said, 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we'll leave it. Man, he got everybody.
He did.
Yeah, this is really good. Yeah, okay. One more time, what's the best place for people to go find this?
It's at The Athletic, Stephen Nesbitt. I would just go to the MLB page or the NBA page under the Jazz marking because he talked to Ryan. It probably has a Jazz tag. So those are the two spots, and it was one of the big stories that ran yesterday, but it should be on there for a while.
He interviewed a guy named Breck from Provo.
Yeah, he did.
Perfect.
Yeah, he did.
All right, we'll catch a break. Chris Kamrani, live in studio, wrote a piece for The Athletic about the F the Mormons chant that has kind of permeated throughout college athletics. Oklahoma State finally was punished. We'll get into that. And the Real Monarchs lost to Vancouver over the weekend. We'll talk a little soccer before we set Chris loose. Don't forget, Bill Riley will join us today, Tim McMahon, and Adam Mikulich from KUTV. Busy Tuesday show. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, Chris Camerani, live in studio. Is your Stevie Wonder knowledge deep enough to pick a favorite Stevie Wonder album?
No, it's not.
Neither's mine. Neither's mine. Talking Book is the only one I could name off the top of my head, so I'm going to say that's the best one, but I'm sure there are Stevie Wonder experts that would be upset if we even engaged in the debate.
Well, they shouldn't be upset because a Stevie Wonder song was our song at our wedding. And it's the song at the end of High Fidelity. So
was this song?
No.
Okay.
My guess is you might not have rights to play it because sometimes there's.
Oh wait, we don't have rights to play.
It's called I Believe. I Believe when I.
That's the song.
Yeah, that's the song at the end of High Fidelity.
We don't have rights to play that song. Porter, please secure rights to play that song before next segment.
I'll work.
Okay, thank
Confirmed.
you. That's a great song.
It is.
I'm impressed. Of course you did. Why didn't you invite me to your wedding? By the way, it's messed up.
Well. It's a long story.
No, it's not. It's not a long story. We didn't know each other when you got married.
It's a short story.
It's a short story. All right, Chris, you and I have discussed this, quite frankly, for a little while, and I don't want to take all the credit for the Big 12 acting. Okay. So finally, though, the Big 12 did take some action. The derogatory chants targeting the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You wrote on this with Justin Williams.
Yep.
So let's just kind of unpack it. I lost count. I mean, 11, 12, 13 different schools have launched into the F the Mormon chants. I think student sections and such, football, basketball games. And I don't know. I didn't talk about it for a while. And then something just kind of clicked where I'm like, enough of this stuff. And so we actually did an entire segment based on the last 2 times this has happened and tried to make a plea to the Big 12 to do something, and they finally did, finding Oklahoma State $50K. Yeah, yep. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Well, in the wake of the Oklahoma State chant, our editors wanted us to take a look into what the Big 12 is doing to mitigate this going forward. And Justin, who is one of my favorite colleagues at The Athletic, he is kind of our Big 12 conference guy, talked to a bunch of sources within the conference, and found out that Commissioner Brett Yormark is not happy about this at all and is making it a point to all of the teams in the conference that this will not stand going forward, and that there are mitigations in place to ensure that schools educate their fan bases on why this is offensive. I mean, Tommy Lloyd before that Arizona game last week there was a message played at the McHale Center. I think is it the McHale Center?
Yep.
Okay. Just not addressing it directly, but kind of indirectly addressing we're better than this because they were one of the teams last year that did it.
Correct.
Justin found out that Texas Tech has been at the forefront of preventing this, on with their fans,
getting ahead of it.
Their basketball coach Grant
McCaslin
talked to. He talked to the football fans during football season, and then Joey McGuire talked to the basketball fans during basketball season about this is not who we are. We're not going to do this, and it's been successful, and so this has happened in 4 markets in the Big 12 conference footprint, which has 16 teams, but we're taking BYU and Utah out of it, so 4 out of 14, which is 40%. That's an unacceptable clip, obviously.
Yeah.
So, the conference is, doing what it can to mitigate this. And, what we wanted to do was try to explain to readers why this is an issue. And, I was able to talk to Professor Patrick Mason up at Utah State, who is a history professor who leads their Mormon history chair department about why we are here. And he had some very insightful things to say. And, the thing that struck me the most is minorities need other people to react for them. And Latter-day Saints currently, unfortunately, just don't have enough people being offended on their behalf. Folks who aren't part of that culture and aren't part of that religion. So I hope this will change. I hope this doesn't happen again soon. But like I said, I've worked in this market for a very long time. And, it's kind of a unwritten, known fact that it's really hard to get the church to comment on things publicly. And, when I reached out to them, I told them this is a story we're working on. We want to give you a chance to comment because BYU's commented about it. Brian Santiago's commented about it. Kevin Young had a great quote about it after the Oklahoma State chant. but like the church really hasn't weighed in on this. So the fact that we were able to get that, and it was much stronger than I thought. So I think they deserve a lot of credit, because usually they try to steer clear of controversial things. So the fact that they were able to respond and did in such fashion, that I was impressed by.
So let's get to the response from the church. You have it in your piece,
yeah,
obviously.
It's at the top.
It's at the top.
First quote.
Okay. So let's see. Flash forward. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is and you're right. I mean, this is difficult to do. Real quick, how'd you get that done? What was that process?
Well, the church has a newsroom like tab on their website, and there's a name and number that you reach out to for journalist requests. Just reached out and they got back.
Huh? Because it is rare, especially for something
rare.
like this.
Yeah.
So here's the statement from the church. Quote, "While not representative of the broader community, we expect better from those who do engage in these derogatory chants at various sporting events. Such chants are offensive, discriminatory, and unacceptable. We commend the Big 12's conference commitment to a unifying remedy. It is time to move beyond the cycle of reoccurring apologies without improvement. We reaffirm our love of neighbor and pray for greater kindness and compassion for all." The statement, "It is time to move beyond the cycle of recurring apologies without improvement."
Right? I mean, like that.
That's what stands out.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think if you know, historically, when the church weighs in on things, they're not very, I don't want to say that's heavy-handed, because I think they're right, but I think they asserted their position fairly well on the point. They wanted to get their point across, and they did.
Yeah, no, that is as much of a strong statement about how this is not okay, in our opinion, that I've heard from them. Because what you usually would get is what the final sentence says: "We reaffirm our love of neighbor and pray for greater kindness and compassion among all." And to your earlier point, and it's well put, that minorities need people to stand up and get behind their endeavors, and marginalized people deserve and need people to speak up for them when they can't speak up for themselves. One of the things I said the day after this is like, look, I will say what the Mormon people will not say, or the LDS community will not say, and that this is enough. Shut up. No more. And I would use stronger language if we weren't on AM Sports Talk Radio, because it's old, it's stupid, it's boring, it's lazy, and it's religious bigotry. One of the things I wanted to ask you about that is here in this piece is, I'll have to find it, but it's something along the lines of the Big 12 came out with a public fine and reprimand of Oklahoma State.
Right.
But behind the scenes, other things are kind of going on. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, they're making sure that every school in the conference basically is educating like players, fan bases, and trying to. And I don't know if this is going to be a recurring thing, but I would assume that the Tommy Lloyd pre-recorded video message before that game you might see that in other schools as BYU hits the road. And I don't think they play at West Virginia this weekend. And I don't know how many more road games they have.
It's only like 4 games left in the season.
Yeah, I think they I know they're at West Virginia for sure, and I can't remember if they closed the season at home against Texas Tech or on the road against Texas Tech. But yeah, it's basically the powers that be in the conference are like kind of at a breaking point where like this will not be accepted any longer.
They've got West Virginia, and then they've got Cincinnati, where this happened.
Is on the road?
It's on the road at Cincinnati.
It happened.
Yeah,
happened in the football season after the BYU and the church helped raise like 27,000 pounds of food for their school pantry. The
largest donation to their food bank, and then during the game, it's F the Mormons again. Then it's Texas Tech at home, and then it's but it's on the road. I mean, the Big 12 tournament is in Kansas City this year, so they'll be playing away from Provo. Yeah. One more thing here. No, real quick, where can people go get your story?
Oh yeah, it's just at The Athletic. Yeah. I believe it's probably both under the NCAA football and NCAA men's basketball pages as well.
Yeah. Okay. It's excellent. Of course, our guy CK wrote it along with Justin Williams, so go find that, give it a read. I think BYU fans will be interested, or just members of the LDS Church, or anybody that's interested in the topic.
My friends who are active members are huge BYU fans,
Yeah.
and bless their hearts, they're subscribers to The Athletic, and they venture into the depths of hell that I do not, and they said the comment sections is a cesspool on that story.
Well, that's not surprising.
Yeah, so
that's why you
just avoid that.
Yes,
for folks.
That's
please.
why you do not read the comments. It is rule number one, lesson number one. Do not read the comments. Like if there was a knock at your front door and you knew if you opened it, somebody was going to punch you in the face
or try to sell you something,
don't open the door. It's the same thing. Gordon Monson, our shout out, our guy, wrote a piece on the heels of the Parker Kingston news. Ultimately, Gordon, when he writes something like this, I'll just remind people it doesn't only come from him. Oftentimes there's gentle persuasion or encouragement to maybe further a message for some people that are in power. Obviously, Gordon is his own man with his own opinions and comments. And I won't weigh into the entire thing, but the Parker Kingston story is just the latest in a string of incidents regarding BYU athletes that I would imagine those people that are involved with Brigham Young University or the LDS culture that aren't super pumped on the fact that sports is as prominently featured as it is, because we talk about this all the time, and certainly the chasm between academia and athletics and institutions is nothing new. There's a lot of jealousy on the academia side for money that is given to athletics, and some people just hate sports. They think it's a zero-sum game and an exercise in futility. It is the very definition of a zero-sum game. Let's get that out of the way. But when it comes to the people that have been critical of the money spent to bring talented athletes to Provo because of the risk, in their opinion, it could bring to furthering the message, this is another headline that pops up, and it was a national story all over the place, and it just can't sit well with a lot of folk down there, I would imagine.
Yeah, one thing we should make sure we're not doing is we're not falling victim to the moment, and understanding that there have been alleged instances from a BYU athlete perspective for the last however many decades. Mm-hmm. This is not something that is becoming a trend, but when you talk about what the school represents and the mission and the message and the reach, I would imagine folks aren't happy, but I just think we're in a day and age now where you have so many student athletes in so many sports. And regardless of what the requirements are at your school, if you are alleged to have broken a law, whatever it is, you broke a law. Like that's just, will it sting harder because it happened at BYU? I'm gonna say no. I just think it's if you are alleged or convicted to have done something, then it's just a bad look. Period. End of story.
And I mean, BYU is far from the only place this is happening in. But just like we were talking about earlier, where the redeeming mindset and thought across the country, if you are from Utah, if you travel around and and they say, where are you from? And you say, I'm from Utah, the first thing they ask you is, are you a Mormon? The fact that BYU is a church-owned school, very front-facing and consistent in your face about this is who we are and this is what we represent, and wanting that message to be furthered, if an incident does occur, alleged or ultimately found guilty, there will be a different, amount of attention on that alleged event, whether it's happened or it hasn't. If it's out there in the public consciousness and it's tied to BYU, people are going to be like, well, wait a second. You tell us that this is who you are. Yeah. This incident indicates that maybe you're not who you are. Fair or unfair, that's kind of the redeeming thought.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason why I don't like to serve as judge, jury, and executioner in the public realm. One, I'm not supposed to because it's my job to get facts and tell the truth. But yeah, I mean, I think we are, especially in this state, and like you talked about it on Talking Sports. Like, it is unfortunate that a flashpoint like this can cause so much added fuel, unnecessary fuel, I would say, to where like I said last week on your show, like it's okay to just not say anything. Mm-hmm. It's okay to just say, oh, that's terrible. We'll see what happens. It's okay to say that. And I just don't think we live in a society where that's A, accepted as much, and B, like taught. Because all of this stuff I feel like can be explained to somebody at a young age or at an older age. I'm not saying it's only the youngs who weigh in and say terrible things online, but yeah, we're not in exactly the brightest of times right now.
No, there's no argument there. Any update on the Kingston stuff? I know you're working on it.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you don't hold me to this.
I will not.
I think his next virtual appearance was supposed to be today or tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Before we get to the Monarchs losing to Vancouver 1-0, oh, dude, just when I saw that lineup slide, I just want your take on this real quick. So, every time there's a seminal moment in like an international tournament like the Olympics or the World Cup, it turns into what will this mean for this sport? And for the first time in 46 years, the gold medal for the men's hockey tournament resides in the United States. So we were talking about, what will this mean for hockey? What will this mean for the NHL? And will it lead to a bunch of interest that maybe the league doesn't have right now? The most recent Gallup poll, as far as what is your favorite sport, the question asked by to Americans, hockey is fifth. And so we were talking about this through the prism of our local sports scene, and I just have a lot of friends who are Jazz fans that have now been resigned to the fact that they will never see an NBA championship in Utah. In a way that they weren't back in the day, because when we were growing up, we actually had a team that competed for it. But if we're honest, we haven't had a team since then that's been close. Yeah. So 1998 was the last team that was even close to winning an NBA championship. Well, not D-Will and Booz and Memo, good team, not close. Mitchell, Gobert, Quinn, Dennett, good team, not close. Yep. But it's very possible to build a championship team here in pro hockey.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Clayton Keller.
Well, it's obvious. 2.7% of our city is comprised of African-American people.
Yeah, right.
And I don't have to go down the history lesson of how many players continue to this day make fun of Utah and make fun of Salt Lake. When Jaren Jackson Jr. was traded here, you can go look at the clips, players on podcasts like, oh, I sent him a text like, sorry, dude, you live in Utah now.
Right.
That no matter what, Ryan Smith tries to do to hire Dwayne Wade and wears hat backwards, it's not changing. The players still ultimately have the same opinion of our market. So look, I'm not saying it's impossible, because with smart front office people, and I think Austin Ainge is smart, and a good coach like Will Hardy, and if you get some luck in the draft, you can build a championship team anywhere. But we haven't had any luck in the draft. Maybe we'll get some this year. And who knows? Maybe this whole thing is dispelled by something that happens in a few years. But on the other side, I do think it is easier to build a championship hockey team in Salt Lake than a championship basketball team.
You're telling me it's easier to convince a bunch of Finnish athletes to come live in Salt Lake City.
Well, where's Markkanen from?
I believe he's from
Finland. Yeah.
I couldn't. What I'll say is my very limited knowledge of the NHL is yes, you can, because I think the Golden Knights won it like in their second or third year.
They've been their first year
as an expansion side.
Yeah.
For some reason, the best hockey team in the NHL plays its games in like Fort Lauderdale, the Florida Panthers. Like I didn't even know that they were a real thing until recently, but they have a bunch of really good players. Like, where's the Detroit Red Wings, man? Where's Mark Messier?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
bring him back.
I'm talking to Spence Checketts. Where's Brett Hull?
Ooh, good pull.
My point is yes, it's doable.
Yeah.
On the Jazz front, never say never. If they get the pick, I'm going to put you on the spot. If they get the number one pick, who are you taking?
At this point, I'm still taking Darren Peterson.
You are?
Yeah, but
you're going to get canceled, man.
Well, that's fine. If I'm canceled for that take, based off of the things that I've already said into this microphone over the past 20 years, then that would be something. I love AJ. I do. But all this talk about, like, Darren Peterson, go look at Kyrie Irving, okay? Like, when you identify a great college player, he doesn't have to play a game if you think he's going to be a great pro, because the NBA game is much different than the college game. I love that AJ shows up and plays hard, and I think he's going to be awesome. But if you believe what these scouts have tabbed Darren Peterson as, and AJ too, in a way, but Darren is just thought to have a next-level NBA complete skill set that if you're invoking the name Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan based off, like, if you have the nerve to do that, I think you owe it to your fan base to try it if you believe. Now, the AJ thing for the Jazz specifically is interesting because
Brian?
Will he stay? Because, look, if you're telling me A.J. DeBonsa is open to playing 12, 14 years in Utah,
that's a good point.
And Darren Peterson's going to be your 5 or 6, I'm taking A.J.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no doubt about that. All right. Well, I'll just speak for myself.
You couldn't have been disappointed by the result.
No, I'm not disappointed by the result. We're going to get there one step at a time. We're going to get there one step at a time. But, Saturday, the friend thread, the chat is lively, as they say.
You had your new kid on.
Oh, yeah. New kid on.
Yeah.
Some old school, like Adidas on, joggers. Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah, you're ready.
Got my popcorn.
Uh-huh.
Match day 1.
Ready.
Nerves set in.
Yep.
Lineup slide sent out. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? RSL, it was the Monarchs and Rafa Cabral and Justin Glad. Yep. And I guess DeAndre Yedlin. Yeah. Now, to your point, I thought it was going to be 5-0, 4-1. 1-0 with a goal called back that was a little sus, as the kids would say. What was your experience?
I text a certain someone,
Trey,
and I said that they looked better than 80% of RSL's games last year.
That's fair.
In that loss.
That's fair, yeah.
And I'm not saying because maybe they played worse in draws or played worse in wins. What you saw from that game was a group of players who did exactly what their coach wanted them to. And you saw a group of players who, largely the young players, who were absolutely empowered to do it. Because for a lot of young players, when the lights come on, when you're playing Thomas Mueller, you're playing on a terrible turf in Vancouver, it can be a little daunting. But the fact that you saw, I think Luka Moisa is 16 years old.
I think he's 17. My man looks like he's 12, dude.
Dude, my guy, Aiden Herzakani, the Persian, left foot, sweet left foot.
Yeah, he's good.
Zach Booth,
yep.
Eden Zone.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw was a group of players who showed Pablo that he will not accept kind of a lackadaisical / doesn't meet my threshold type of approach this year.
For sure.
Because, yes, you have some big name signings coming in, and even though I'm trying not to overreact to one game, but you can make an argument that RSL. I think I would honestly make the argument that RSL was a better side in that game overall. I
was very pleasantly surprised because it does have to be underscored that Vancouver nearly won MLS Cup last year.
3-1 loss to Miami in the final.
And also in CONCACAF.
Made it to the final.
Yeah, they were right there. This is a really good team, not an easy place to play. I wonder if Luka Moisa even knows who Thomas Mueller even is. Because of this age gap.
He might be too old for Luka.
Exactly. But I was honestly, I see the slide, and then it comes out that they, I think, started 7 players that played an MLS Cup final last year. I'm like, this is 5-0, 5-1.
Yeah.
So to your point, pleasantly surprised. I will, to say they were the better side, I don't know that I would go that far, but the fact that we can even exist in the space is pretty remarkable. Let me ask you about the goal. My guy, Ari Puyol. That's my guy. So Alex Catranis, left side, switch. I believe it was Sam. Who was it?
No, it was Moisa.
Moisa, okay. Yeah. Over to Catranis. When I was watching it, and when I saw that it was Catranis, I'm like, wait, was he off? But then he sends the ball into Ari, who scores. I'm like, Ari wasn't off.
Wasn't off.
There's no way. So was that called on Catranis?
It was.
Okay.
And
was it the right
Apple TV took way terribly too long to show the replay.
Yeah.
And I think they didn't have a perfect viewpoint of it, but he looked to be off on the switch. But yeah.
All right, because, that changed the entire thing. But they had a lot of different...
It did. Herzakani almost had a left-footed shot from outside the box that went in.
Yeah.
But to your point, Mueller hit the post. They were lucky to not concede on that. But, Yedlin gets hurt. He's not going to play. He grabbed it at his hamstring.
Yeah.
I would assume he's out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Bunch of guys already out. The ITC, visa thing. I don't know if you've talked to anybody over there recently. I don't know what the update is there, but I would assume there will be some guys back this week.
I think so, yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, they played Seattle well at home. I feel like they've opened the season at home against Seattle for the last 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yeah, it's one of those weird matchups that RSL's owned.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see how the kids look. But again, what I've kind of been critical about from an RSL Academy standpoint in recent years was they were good at churning out your right backs, your center backs. Like, you saw a couple of kids, and Herzarkani, and Zach is technically an RSL Academy kid before going overseas.
Yeah.
Gozo and Moisa, they look to fit the bill of what you need if you want to actually use the academy to help build your first team. No,
I agree. I was skeptical and pleasantly surprised, but I'm also not about, there's no moral victories on this radio show, Chris. Seattle's the next opponent. All right, buddy, great to see you. Go get your boy, okay?
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Catch a break. Voice of the Utes, Bill Riley joins us coming up next on ESPN 700.
Traore way out above the arc to KD. Into the corner now, Terrence Brown's got it. Baseline, leaves it in the lane, and Josh Hayes runs the rim and dunks it down for Utah.
It's game day for the Runnin' Utes. Iowa State is in town for a 7 o'clock tip. The game can be seen on FS1. My recommendation is to turn it on and turn the sound down and turn the radio up if you can't make it, so you can hear the voice of our next guest, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, Tuesday afternoon style. What's up, Riles? How are you, man?
I'm great, Spence. What's going on?
All good here. So before we get to the Utes, I got to know, did you wake up Sunday morning in time to watch a gold medal won by our U.S. men's hockey team?
I woke up in time for the third period. I had it recorded and ready to go, and then I saw the score, and I was like, I'll go back and watch the first two periods later. I'll watch the third period now, and then overtime.
All right. Well, I mean, ultimately, that's enough to appreciate a pretty seminal moment. For the first time in 46 years, the gold medal for men's hockey lives in the U.S. What'd you think?
It was, Spence, it was everything that we want from sports. It was on the biggest stage. It was the two best of the best. The game led up to, or the match, the game led up to everything we wanted it to do. We got the drama of overtime. The team that most all of us were rooting for that are listening here won the game. It had, the emotion of the family. And I don't know that it didn't, was there a box that didn't check? It checked every single box you could possibly want. And then to cap it all off, as if it couldn't get any better, then you have them honoring Johnny Gaudreau and then bringing Johnny Gaudreau's two infant children on the ice with them for the picture after the game. I mean, it was everything you could want in sports and more, and we got it. And it unfolded in front of us, and it was everything. I mean, I don't know that I'm old enough because I'm old, as we often talk about, but I remember the Miracle on Ice. I was 10 years old when the Miracle on Ice happened, and I remember that. It doesn't have the same geopolitical feel of the Cold War that one did in the high school and college kids, but it may turn out to be one of the great sporting events of my later lifetime. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, I wonder how we'll talk about this 46 years from now, because so many people drew a line from 1980 to the evolution of hockey in America. Now, none of these kids were even born in 1980, but as a result of the Miracle on Ice, it led to the implementation and creation of this youth system that we have now that's led to the team that ultimately just won a gold medal. I know I'm asking you to read the future, and I don't know if you've read up on AI. In 46 years, we might not even have a society. But on the premise that we might, Bill, how do we talk about this 46 years from now?
I think we'll talk about it well. I don't think it will carry the same weight as that game did just because, well, it wasn't the underdog thing. That was the other part of it. It was the greatest team to that point in time ever assembled, the Soviet machine, against a bunch of college kids who were good hockey players, but they had gotten beat 10-3 the year before. These guys are all pros. These guys are all teammates. These are the best two teams in the world. The United States back in 1980 was not the second best team in the world. It was probably Finland or Sweden or one of those countries after the Soviet Union. So I think this is a big moment for American hockey, and I think it's the culmination of, the academy that was put together in 1996, and these kids are the first real big generation to come through it and all of that stuff. But I don't think it's going to carry the same weight historically, especially because I think the United States is well positioned to win a gold. I don't think they're going to go 46 years between gold medals again. I think they could end up being the favorite. They weren't that far behind Canada this time around.
All right, moving over to the Utes now. We were hoping that the momentum from the West Virginia win would carry over. And you know what? I don't think it's completely fair to say it didn't carry over just because they didn't win. Now, I'm not a moral victory guy. I won't be a moral victory guy for Utah basketball or any other sport I cover. but they are looking better. And for a complete teardown rebuild, things like that matter when we know that it's going to be a minute until Alex actually has the talent game in and game out to compete with his peers. What did you like about Utah's performance against UCF, and ultimately what do you think cost them the win?
Well, they played really hard again, Spence. Same way they did against West Virginia, even the same way they did against Cincinnati. And the defense has been better. They've held their last 5 opponents under their season average of scoring. UCF was averaging about 80 a game. They held them to 73 points. Utah was in that game at the end. They didn't quit. They didn't give up. They didn't hang their heads. They made big plays. Don McHenry makes a corner 3 to tie it. Then he gets another 3 that he's fouled on, makes 3 free throws to tie it. I think they played hard and put themselves in a position to win. Again, little things hurt them a little bit. You know, the foul where they fouled at the end, I think Alex wanted a foul more out about half court. They had a foul to give. Instead, they got the foul in the act of shooting. It was, again, it wasn't big. They played hard. They played well. They were in the game to the end. But there's just some little things they aren't doing. And when you don't have comparable talent, I think UCF, we could say, is a more talented team than Utah. Most of the teams are. You can't make those little mistakes and hope to win. But what you like is the defense has gotten incrementally better, and the kids are playing really hard, despite the fact that they haven't had the results that they want this year. You know, in this day and age, watch college basketball around the country. A lot of teams aren't playing hard that are in the position Utah's in. Alex's guys are still playing hard for him.
Tell me, and we had Sean Mooney in studio last week, which was a lot of fun. What a nice guy, dude. What a breath of fresh air, a pleasant, positive attitude, which I really could work on. But I'm going to ask you something I asked him, because the Houston game, as you and I discussed, I went to the game, was on like the 14th, 15th row, and as a result of not a ton of people in that building and a ton of noise in the building, you can hear everything Alex is saying. And I'm familiar with the system. I know what he's trying to implement on both sides of the ball. So when I hear the terms, I look to see if the players are listening and then executing. And more often than not, they weren't. And you could tell it was driving Al crazy. In addition to playing hard, in addition to being more competitive, are these young men understanding more what their head coach is asking of them?
Yeah, I think they're understanding more, Spence. I don't think that they're fully at all times comprehending what Alex is asking, or at least not executing in the way Alex would like it necessarily executed. But I do think it's gotten better. Now, ideally, you would have liked this maybe in November instead of mid to late February. But I do think the message, the philosophy, the asks are getting through to them.
As far as the health stuff goes, are we kind of in the same place? Are we expecting anyone else available tonight that hasn't been available yet?
I don't think so,
okay.
But I think that Lucas Longarita has begun practicing a little bit. I don't know what his ETA for return is, but he's gotten better and he's been more active with the team in practice. So whether that, I don't think that means tonight. At least if it does, they didn't let me know. But I think they're making some progress on the Longarita front right now.
Very nice. Okay, moving over to tonight, it wouldn't be Miracle on Ice upset, but it's going to take a lot because Iowa State is awesome. Now, Iowa State is coming off a loss to BYU down in Provo, and this league is just so stupid. I mean, I still might think Houston is the best team. They've lost 3 straight. Kansas got them last night, and there was a moment where I'm like, wait, was I so wrong about Iowa State after they beat Kansas and Houston? Are they the best team in the league? They lose to BYU. But this is a good, well-balanced, big physical team. The Joshua Jefferson kid is an NBA talent, probably a top 10, 15 guy. Tell us about Iowa State. What have you learned, and how can Utah at least give themselves a fighting chance down the stretch?
Well, it was weird. They lost to BYU on the road. There's no shame in losing down there to a good basketball team, but they moved up in the polls. I mean, that's the respect that TJ Otzelberger's team has right now, that people know what they have. You mentioned the guy that's probably their best all-around player, Joshua Jefferson. He has the honor of being the only player in Division I college basketball, Spence, that's averaging 16 points, 7.5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.5 steals a game. Nobody else has that line in Division I college basketball. He's really good. We actually saw him a couple of years ago He was playing for St. Mary's. He played for a good program coming up for a couple of years. He's really, really good. And to your point, he's a guy that can do a lot of things. He's got an NBA skill set. They've got a really good point guard, combo guard, Taman Lipsey, who is tough as nails. They've got a floor spacer who's shooting 51% from three-point range, Milan Momcilovic. And then they've got some really other nice pieces, too. A young French guard who's a good player, a young German power forward who's a good player, a transfer from Virginia. So there's some players on this team. It's a really good mix. And here's the thing, Otzelberger's a really good coach. They won like 2 or 3 games the year before he got there 5 years ago. And the year he gets there, he wins, I don't know, it was like 15 or 17. Year after that, they're in the NCAA tournament. He's a good coach. He coached there before he was an assistant, so he knows the culture there. And I think it might be a good model for what Utah might be able to do in year 2 under Al too, knowing the landscape, knowing the culture of the place, and being a good coach. So, but to your point, they're really good. I think they're Final Four potential good. I wouldn't necessarily lock them in and say they're a Final Four team for sure, but they've got the DNA to do that. The thing too is they're good on offense. They score about 83 a game. They're really good on defense. They're one of just a handful of teams that are in Ken Palm's top 20 for offense and defense. In fact, they're number 8 in the country defensively, only giving up 65 points. So to your point, yeah, the Utes are going to have their hands full tonight with Iowa State, but they've played well against good teams. They were toe-to-toe with Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. They didn't get their doors blown off by Houston. They had a chance to beat BYU at the Huntsman Center. So they've played well. Thing with Utah is it goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning. They have to be locked in from the start. When they were at West Virginia, they got out to an 18-3 lead. They didn't fall behind early against UCF the other day too. It was a 1 or 2 possession game all the way throughout. What you can't do against Iowa State, you've seen the metric that they use in the advanced analytics that they call a kill shot. Those are 10-0 runs in college basketball. When a team puts a 10-0 run or more on you, that's what's considered to be a kill shot. Iowa State leads the country in kill shots. They've got 35 of them this year.
Wow.
You cannot afford to give up kill shots because you'll be down a bucket, then all of a sudden you're down 14, and they're a tough team to come from behind against because they're so good.
Do you know how many kill shots Utah has?
I don't know that. I've got to go back and look. I will tell you it's not nearly as many as Iowa State.
I think that's safe to say. The over-under, respectfully, wouldn't be very high. All right, I know you got to go, but before I set you loose, BYU starts spring ball on Friday, and historically speaking, spring football in Provo, as Porter reminded us, is earlier than it is up here. But, of course, football fans chomping at the bit for any sort of football content. Any thoughts on when we might see spring ball commence?
Again, I haven't heard. I would expect we'd probably find out anytime soon. My guess is, and this is just a guess, is probably second or third week of March. Sometimes Kyle in the past would start a week before spring break. They'd take spring break and come back. I don't know if Morgan wants to do that same approach. In recent years, they've started after and just gone all the way through, a full month straight away through to mid-April. But I would guess we probably find out pretty soon here. But second or third week in March would be my guess. But, again, I haven't heard anything official.
What is the latest episode of Crimson Corner, and where can our Ute fans go find it?
Last week, if you missed it, I had to drop it on Friday of last week because I was traveling all week long. We had former Ute quarterback great and ESPN 700 intern Brian Johnson, who's been in the NFL now with the Eagles and Commanders for the last few years. Brian and I had a great chat last week. This week, and it should drop tomorrow, I've got to what we've been talking about and looking ahead toward the future. I've got Utah basketball general manager Wes Wilcox coming on with me this week.
Love it. Riles, thanks for the time, man. You owe me a high five.
I owe you a high five. I'll talk to you soon.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. Iowa State in town tonight. As Bill referenced, this is a team with Final Four potential. The Joshua Jefferson kid, no relation to Justin Jefferson, might be a lottery pick, worth the price of admission. Iowa State heavily favored, no surprise there. And for Utah, I kind of said this to Bill. It's not entirely accurate to say the momentum from the West Virginia win didn't carry over. but it didn't end up leading to a win. And that's the bottom line. I mean, ultimately, it's hard to really cover whether it's the Jazz or whether it's the Utes or rebuilding teams around here, to cover them in the prism of just analyzing wins and losses when we understand where we're at in the process is probably not the way to go. The intensity defensively, the rotations, the closeouts, everything is a lot better now in the season than it was to start. It really, not to be reductive here, but I can be reductive with this team. It does come down to the talent level and the ability for Utah basketball to create offense oftentimes when sets break down. Now, Don and Terrence can, but again, they're both very similar, as we've discussed. They've got to get something from somebody outside of Terrence and Don and Keanu Dawes. Now, it was Seydou Traore against West Virginia, but Traore against UCF had 2 points, and he was 1 of 8. Missed all 4 of his threes. Okonkwo, 4 points, 2 of 4. You're not going to get a lot of scoring from him, but Kendall Sanders had 4, Josh Hayes had 4, and the Obamonte Abi kid had 2 atrocious turnovers down the stretch that basically handed that game over. So Iowa State rolls into town after losing to BYU, and it is a team that is potential to make a run in the NCAA tournament. It's always hard to say this is a Final Four team. There are so many variables, and it's what makes March Madness potentially my favorite event on the sporting calendar. There are so many variables in a single game elimination tournament that it's just really hard to predict if a team is going to make it to the Final Four. Iowa State has the talent on paper. Of all the teams in this league, Iowa State is the one that I probably overlooked the most. I thought Houston would win the league. They still might, but they've lost 3 straight. Kansas, with Darren Peterson, has something to say about how the Big 12 is going to play out. And Arizona, I mean, Koa Pete has been kind of in and out of the lineup, but they have so much experience. They've got an unbelievable freshman guard, but a great senior guard, too, has been around for a long time. Like, there's a lot to like about Arizona. And, again, if Koa Pete can get back, if Darren Peterson elects to play, and if Houston kind of gets back to their identity, they got smoked last night, Fog Allen, by Kansas. Now, Bill Self never loses on Big Monday basketball, and by never, I mean literally never. He's 41-0. But you could tell Kelvin Sampson was getting really frustrated watching this young guard, Kingston Flemings, who, by the way, has a lot of game. And I mean, as it translates into the league, as it translates into the NBA. I mean, there's so much conversation about Darren Peterson and A.J. DeBonson and Cameron Boozer. But Kingston Fleming, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be like those guys. But if you view this through the Jazz prism, as we've talked about, and Sarah Todd joined us yesterday, I mean, doomsday scenario, of course, is falling out of the top 8, because that means your pick goes to Oklahoma City. But if the Jazz go 1 through 8, if, let's say, worst case scenario, the Jazz landed 8, okay, and that would be a big gut punch based off of the decision, once again, to be unserious about your craft, to hold on to your draft pick. The Vegas odds shifted today, by the way. The Vegas favorite to be the number 1 overall pick as of today is AJ. That shifted today. That shifted earlier today. So, you know, AJ or Darren, probably number 1, and whoever doesn't go 1 will go 2, would be my guess. Cameron Boozer is thought to be the consensus number 3. Caleb Williams, unfortunately, I think he broke his hand. He's hurt now, but he had a great start to the season for Carolina. There's a lot to like about Caleb Wilson, who, again, broke his hand. Then I think you get into the range where you start talking about a Kingston Flemings, the Houston point guard who we saw play here against Utah. And he is an NBA-built lead guard. He's big, he's long, he's strong. Interesting thing is he's kind of a mid-range game guy. He's just an okay three-point shooter. And, you know, if the Jazz are at 5 and Flemings is on the board, there is a little bit of Keontae George to Kingston Flemings' game. But if we're honest, is there a lead guard that the Jazz have on their roster that they feel comfortable being their starting point guard for the future? I just don't think it's Keontae. I don't think he's a starting lead guard. And there's a lot to like about Isaiah Collier, but if you're going to shoot 28% from 3, you cannot be a starting guard in pro basketball anymore. So maybe you do look at Kingston Flemings. Maybe you can put him next to Keontae, and then you go market in Jaren Jackson Jr. and Walker Kessler, and then we got something to work with. Mikael Brown from Louisville is getting a lot of love. Nate Emmett from Tennessee. And then you kind of get into the weeds a little bit as far as, who you would look at 8. The generational pieces is, and I always kind of just concede this stuff to the people who do it every day, because you never know if a generational piece is actually going to turn into that. I mean, if we wanted to get into the conversation of how many players were lauded coming out of the draft as teams that would change organizations, there are so many names of players that never panned out. And as we know, in this market specifically, there are plenty of players you can find in the late lottery or the late first round, or shout out Paul Millsap and Mo Williams in the second round, that turn out to be really, really good. Like, you don't only have to be slotted in one spot. And since the changeover in ownership and front office with Utah Jazz, the fact of the matter is the players they have drafted that have looked okay have not been their higher picks. Taylor Hendricks now plays for Memphis. Cody Williams looks like he's high speed ahead to Beijing. The best player that has been drafted throughout the course of the Danny Ainge, Austin Ainge, Ryan Smith era is Keontae, who was 18, 19, something like that. They didn't draft Walker. Remember, he was part of the Gobert trade. So, of course, you want Lady Luck on your side, and you want the opportunity to have the number 1 pick for the first time in franchise history, or a top 2 pick, because it feels like most people believe the way the NBA game is now, that both A.J. DiBonsa and Darren Peterson are built to change your team right away. Now, the expectation has to be tempered a little bit, because there are just very few teenagers who enter the NBA and are ready. Very few. I mean, Garnett was right away. He wasn't dominating right away, but he could play next to men right away. Of course, LeBron was. Very few. Moses Malone, if you want to get weird and go back in the day. So whether it's Cameron Boozer, whether it's A.J. DiBonsa, whether it's Darren Peterson, Kingston Flemings, or Caleb Wilson, these are all freshmen, by the way. The freshman class in college basketball this year is as good, I think, as we've ever seen. And you know what it's actually led to? For all the belly aching about the NBA, if you're not watching, and I get it, because you might have a life. Well, I do this for a living. College basketball has been really fun this year. The Big 12, night in, night out, brings a ton of big-time matchups, and it is so hard to predict. And one of the things that's difficult with, okay, where are we at with Kansas? Well, does Darren decide to play every night? The conversation around Darren Peterson I do find interesting. I just always bottom line it with this. I'm just a talent guy. Like, just give me the talent and I'll figure everything else out. Let's start with the blueprint of, is this guy talented? Does he have an NBA body? Does he have the measurables? But most importantly, is he talented enough to play in this league? And if the answer is yes, all right, maybe you didn't play when a lot of people were hoping you would. When you were at Kansas, did you really have a hamstring injury? You pulled yourself out in the second half. Okay, how much of this is real? Look, we'll figure that out. The names that are invoked when scouts talk about Darren Peterson are Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and the transcendent wings that play the way he plays. I would never go there, because I think that's entirely inappropriate. And ultimately, I think it puts expectations in people's minds. But look, if basketball people who do this for a living are willing to say that out loud, then you draft Darren Peterson and you figure out the rest. What I will say is the interesting thing about this draft cycle is what's in the mind of A.J. DiBonsa and his support group. His dad, who obviously is very involved, his parents, and then any of his agents, handlers. What has his BYU experience been like? What has his Utah experience been like, as somebody who's lived in our state now for a few years? Because if you're telling me there's a chance of getting 12 years of A.J. DiBonsa and there's, Darren Peterson is going to get gone as soon as he can, then give me A.J. The one piece of the puzzle the Jazz have not been able to solve as of late is the retainment portion, as we've discussed. This is a 3-pronged attack. It's draft, it's develop, and it's retain. Drafted Hayward, developed Hayward, left for Boston. Drafted Mitchell, developed Mitchell, traded to Cleveland. But we all know how that thing basically just blew up in front of our faces. So whether it's Darren Peterson or A.J. DiBonsa, when it comes to the Jazz debating between the two, the biggest portion, I think, of the decision might be, who do you think will stay here the longest? We'll do some more basketball coming up on the other side with Tim McMahon. Our friend Adam Miklich joins us later on, too. We got a busy Tuesday show, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Good night of NBA basketball tonight. Ton of action, highlighted probably by that Knicks-Cavs game that gets going in about 90 minutes. Jazz are off. Jazz were in action last night. They got stomped by the Rockets. Good one in Detroit. Lot to talk about with our next guest, Tim McMahon, Tuesday afternoon. Sir, how are you?
Howdy, partner. How you doing?
I'm good. Let's start with that Spurs-Pistons game. Tell you what, like Detroit just wants to fight everybody, which is a lot of fun. And your buddy Bobby Marks just sent out, like, if you want to solve the watchability problem in the NBA, just have the Pistons play every night. But San Antonio gets it done. They've won 9 straight. Tim, I wonder what your thoughts are on both these young teams matching up last night.
Yeah, I mean, a great game, a fun game, the kind of game that you might end up seeing 6 or 7 of in June. I think it did expose the Pistons' flaws, and that is they rely an awful lot on Cade Cunningham to create offense. They just don't have a lot of shooting around him. They don't have a lot of secondary creation around him, and that's going to be tough to score on when you've got the perimeter defenders that San Antonio has, and you've got the historically dominant rim protector in Victor Wembanyama. And I thought it was a pretty blah game by Wemby on the offensive end. The Pistons obviously are an extremely physical team, even without Beef Stew. There were a lot of times I thought he was kind of flopping and flailing and getting pushed around offensively, but defensively he just dominated that game. And he's a guy who can absolutely dominate a game even when he doesn't shoot the ball well or even when he doesn't get into a flow as a scorer, and that's exactly what we saw last night.
When it comes to the MVP, I know the games played situation is going to kind of cause a little bit of havoc, so we have no idea who's going to be eligible based off of who's going to play the rest of the way. But is Wembanyama like a candidate, you think, to win it this year?
100%. And if the Spurs are a top 2 seed in the Western Conference, he's going to have a really strong case. And again, you can look at the numbers, and he's averages like 24 points and change, and 11 or so rebounds, however many assists. He's not going to have the best offensive numbers, but he is so by far the most dominant defensive force in the league that it's not even funny. And so I think when you combine his offensive production, just for the way that he impacts games defensively, then he absolutely is going to be a legit MVP candidate, assuming he gets that 65 games played minimum. And if I'd have told you going into the season, hey, the San Antonio Spurs are going to be the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, do you think Wemby's going to be an MVP candidate? I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. And that's the case. And he's not a one-man team, but he is definitely the driving force to the Spurs' success.
Yeah, I wanted to revisit something based off of what you just said because, look, I don't know how many people around here dialed into the Spurs every night, but I think it was pretty safe to say if you follow the NBA and love the game, the last night you knew was going to be pretty cool. But, they've got 8 players that average 10 points or more. They've got a former NBA champ in Harrison Barnes. They've got a bunch of guys that can get buckets. They've got a bunch of perimeter defenders that want to kill you. Stephon Castle, and, of course, Devin Vassell can really shoot. Like, I asked you earlier in the year when San Antonio kind of started to show some signs, which, if you were going to buy stock and you had to buy one stock for the future, you buy in Oklahoma City or San Antonio, and you said Oklahoma City then, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but do you still have that same opinion now?
Man, you keep receipts, don't you?
I sure do, Tim.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because if you ask me if there's one guy in the league you could build around, who would it be? It would be Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, the only concern you have there is can he stay healthy? And they've got a lot of nice pieces around him and a lot of nice pieces who are going to be there for a long time. Like, they're going to have that core with him, Stephon Castle, and eventually Dylan Harper's going to end up being a star. They're going to have that core in place for a long, long time. And, you got to be careful when you start talking about multiples of things because there's not many teams that win multiple championships. There's not many players that win multiple MVPs. But I think Wemby is his potential is so vast that I think it would be a disappointment if he's on a multiple in both of those categories.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I want to stay in the space of those two teams last night. Oftentimes, and I heard people discussing this earlier today on the NBA Today show that you're a part of on ESPN, and I think it was Richard Jefferson making the point of just all, and I think anybody who covers the league or have been around the league most oftentimes are hesitant to anoint a team as ready if we haven't seen it yet. And Detroit did make the playoffs last year. They lost to the Knicks in a pretty tough 6-game series. Detroit owns New York this year, I'll tell you that much. But when it comes to maybe San Antonio not having this playoff experience or Detroit not being, a veteran playoff team, does that stand in the way for somebody like you to pick either of them potentially to do something special this year?
It is a legitimate reason to doubt. Yes, absolutely. Just because, like, the history of the game, you don't see teams skipping the line like that. And as you said, the Pistons got a little bit of playoff experience last year, but not much. And the Spurs, as a group, have zero. Like, they don't have any play-in experience. They've got some NBA Cup experience, so they don't have any playoff experience, play-in experience, no kind of postseason experience. So, yeah, I think that's a legitimate reason to doubt. I think I will still pick Oklahoma City to come out of the West. Having said that, I assure you that the Spurs obviously have zero fear of the Thunder. They beat them 4 out of 5, 3 of those wins against a pretty much full-strength Oklahoma City team, and a couple of those in pretty dominant fashion. So that's my answer there. I do think the Pistons are going to come out of the East. I think if you ask 100 people, you're going to get, pretty split opinions among 4 teams: Pistons, Spurs, Pistons, Cavs, Knicks, and who am I leaving out?
Celtics,
right. And look, if Jason Tatum can come back and he's 85% of the player that he was, I think that would tip it in the favor of the Celtics. But, I understand playoffs and regular season is different. But the Pistons are far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference during this regular season.
Yeah, I would agree. And look, even if you get Tatum back, he's not going to be himself right away. Like, I felt if Tatum was going to come back and actually make Boston the favorite again, I feel like he would have had to come back like right now. I'm not sure that you can wait any longer if you're expecting like Tatum to come back and be full bore.
Yeah, and obviously Cleveland made a very aggressive trade for some trades, but specifically with Harden. It's pretty rare that adding a ball-dominant player or a star-caliber player at the trade deadline leads to a championship run or even a finals run. I think you've got to go back to arguably Clyde Drexler in the mid-'90s going to the Rockets to find the last time that you had a star guard make a difference in a championship run after arriving at the deadline. So let's just call it as it is. Like, if you count on James Harden to have a consistently dominant playoff run, it's not happened yet in his career. So, I tend to think that he's not going to be the one who pushes the Cavs over the top.
See, I have and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But I've gone full Joe Rogan on the Cleveland Cavaliers, Tim. Are you ready?
Let's go.
I don't think they made this deal for Harden to try to be serious about competing. I think they wanted to get out from under Garland's money. Harden will not be under contract. They can let him go. I think they know that Mitchell is leaving. I think they know that Donovan wants to get gone. I think they're reading the basically the signs and the writing on the wall. And I think they're going to move off of Mitchell next year prior to the trade deadline because they know he's gone. He's never wanted Cleveland, Tim. I think this is all Cleveland being able to be saving face about, hey, we tried. And then they're going to move on from Donovan and kind of pivot and start over next year. That's how I've read this.
It's a strong conspiracy theory. I agree with you on the part about getting off of Darius Garland's money. Maybe you're right about the rest of it, but that's not what the word is. The word is this is something that Donovan Mitchell wanted to happen. And I guess we'll find out this summer when he can either sign an extension or not. But if he doesn't sign the extension this summer, then it's a 5-alarm fire, and they're going to have to look to trade him for sure. the other thing is I do think that kind of as a wink part of this thing is Harden's going to get his money at least guaranteed next season.
Wow. Okay. The Jazz also played last night. I'll ask you a question about Ace. I'll just ask you a quick question about Ace because there's just nothing there. I mean, I don't have a life, so I was watching Spurs Pistons. I'm like, I guess I'll hang around. But
Right.
all of these young players are going to get ample opportunity over the final 25 games to showcase what they can do. Now, Ace is a little bit different because I think he's been basically put in the category of we want him around, we believe in him. But for so many stretches, he is just a distraction, a wallflower. And if you didn't know any better and you didn't pay attention to it, you'd be like, wait, who's that kid? He doesn't look any different than the other players. I just would love to see him be a little bit more assertive, and then I kind of remember what time it is, and does it even matter?
No, I think that you're right. I also think, I don't know what they list him at. What is he, 6'7", 6'8", but like
6'9", yeah.
length. Yeah, ridiculous length and athleticism and shooting touch. Like he's a pretty rare package of length, athleticism, and skill. But he's having to learn how to play basketball at the NBA level. Like he has not been well coached up until this point. He's very much a developmental project. He's not like Con Knippel, the guy who went right before him, also one and done, a year older, but came in the league pretty polished. Ace needs a lot of polish. I would just caution against making too harsh or too firm of judgments based on the last, third of the season, when the team is clearly tanking and we're talking about a teenager. There's a lot of guys especially guys who come in the league that young who, their rookie year wasn't anything special. They ended up having great careers. His rookie year has been okay. I don't think that, his career is going to be based off of what his numbers are in the last 25 games this season.
I agree with that. What did you make? I was watching the game live, and I see Terry Eason and Vince Williams Jr. running down the floor, and it didn't look good in real time. And then the replay, like Terry Eason clearly hip-checked him, and the poor kid has torn his ACL. And, there are a few layers here because, I do believe Vince Williams Jr. was a part of that trade that the Jazz wanted. He's a pretty good 3-and-D guy. He has worked his tail off, and this is a contract year for him. Like, this is more than just like, Jazz lose a young player for the rest of the year. Like, this is a pretty big blow for this kid. I just wonder what you make of it, and do you think the NBA is going to look at that play?
I mean, it's extremely unfortunate for Vince Williams Jr. I do think he was kind of a underrated part of that trade because he's a very, very good on-ball defender. Like he's a guy, people like Luka Doncic have mentioned how tough he is as a primary defender. Offensively, nothing special, but I think he's a guy who could have been a rotation piece for the Jazz moving forward. This obviously puts his immediate future certainly in some doubt. And look, I understand why people are upset about the play. I don't think it was a malicious play. I don't think it was a cheap shot. I think it was a case of they're on the break and Tari Eason's trying to get a little advantage, trying to get a little bit of room. So he gave him a bump. And then, unfortunately, Vince Williams Jr. landed in the worst possible way and tore his knee. But, I'm not going to sit here and say it was a dirty player and anything malicious. I don't think he meant to hurt the guy. He was just trying to get a little bit of space and transition from that. I don't know exactly what they're going to land on. It's going to be something significant because this has become a complete embarrassment for the NBA. And let's just be honest. Like Adam Silver handed out a couple fines before the All-Star break. Obviously, the Jazz got a pretty hefty one. That was performative because he had to do a press conference a few days later. But it's also indicative of just how much of an embarrassment this whole issue has become for the league. And rightfully so. It is. The product sucks. Like it completely damages the product for now the last couple months of the season. So yeah, they've got to get their arms around this. And again, I think whatever they come up with, you have to make it to where it's not smart strategy to tank. So They got a bunch of nerds in the league office to put together a bunch of proposals. You've got, executives from around the league that have their own ideas. There's going to be a lot of discussion. They've got to come up with something to where it doesn't make sense to intentionally lose games for an entire season, essentially.
Before I set you loose, I tend to agree that the way the West is shaken out, Oklahoma City, San Antonio feels like what we're going to see, and it would be awesome if we did because it's fun when they play head-to-head. But I'll just ask you about the two teams right behind them in Houston and Denver, who, of course, still has Nikola Jokic, and Houston has Kevin Durant, albeit not who he was 5-6 years ago. Either of those two teams have even a puncher's chance against either OKC or San Antonio?
I do not believe at all in Houston this year.
Okay.
Ask me again next year when Fred VanVleet's back and hopefully Steven Adams. But you can't be that bad at closing games and have a chance to win 3 or 4 playoff rounds. It's just not going to happen. They desperately need an experienced point guard, and unfortunately, their guy tore his knee before the season started. Denver is absolutely a threat. They're hoping to get Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson back here sometime, 3 or 4 games down the road here. Hoping to have them for the last 20 games. They're in this weird funk where Joker came back. They're 4-6 since then. They can't win close games all of a sudden. Getting those guys back solves a lot of problems. And you can look at their defensive rating and tell me there's no way a team that's in the 20s in defensive rating can be a contender. I would tell you when they have Aaron Gordon on the floor, their defensive rating is equivalent to the number 3 team in the league.
Yeah.
So can he stay healthy? Obviously we'll find out. But with Aaron Gordon, the Nuggets are a real deal threat to come out of the West. Tim,
appreciate the time, man. Where are you at tonight? I know you were staycationing. Are you on assignment this evening?
I am sitting on the couch and going to enjoy it.
That a guy. All right, we'll set you loose to do that. Be good, okay?
I appreciate you, brother.
Tim McMahon stops by today, courtesy of our friends at Prize Picks. You can shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It is available in Utah, so no worries there. There's a new feature alert where you get early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. You can find your community on Prize Picks. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends. You can copy lineups if you'd like, and you can tail and fade picks with partners like us in just one click. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to consider what's going on right now. We've talked, I think, a lot about like the changing of the guard, like into the new generation of the NBA. And Porter, if you think about a few different things here, Steph is out for 10 games. Jimmy Butler's out for the season. I'll just continue to say, if you're a basketball team that has LeBron and Luka on it, it's hard to say that's impossible. Durant still has moments, but he's no longer who he once was. The future of this league, I think, is now just kind of manifested into what we have in the present, with Detroit being the front runner in the East now. We'll see what the Celtics look like if they can get Tatum back. New York is Jalen Brunson. That's a young player. And out West, it seems to clearly be Oklahoma City and San Antonio. The conversation about when is the next generation going to kind of manifest, it might be, hey, they're here in front of our faces.
Yeah, and we always have this question, like who's going to fill those shoes, right? And you never think that someone's going to be able to. We'll always look back with nostalgia at the eras of Kobe and, LeBron. Now, in multiple eras, of course, but at the end of the day, the talent in this league, the talent in basketball just keeps getting better and better and different in a way. Like, we didn't really see Victor Wembanyama coming, but he's going to be here for as long as those knees hold up, man. That's someone who can, I want to say, dominate the league for decades. And it's hard to really see who is next. But as you said, they kind of materialize right in front of us. OKC, they're not going anywhere. and there's some stars scattered around the league. That being said, there are a few guys that we're not talking about yet that are going to burst onto the scene as well, right? And there's going to be guys that we are talking about right now that may not have the staying power to be the stars to lead a generation. So you never really know in this sport. That's one of the great things about it. But I think what is safe to say is kind of what you intimated. Victor Wembanyama, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Cade Cunningham. I want to say Luka, but I don't know that he's going to play for decades or more. Man, Jokic is going to play for quite some time. The league is in good hands as far as the top level talent goes. My questions about the NBA are, as I've intimated a lot, elsewhere.
You know what's wild to consider? I have no idea. Like when it comes to the MVP award this year, if Jokic misses one more game, he's ineligible. Wemby, 4 more games, he's ineligible. Luka, 5, SGA, 6, Ant, 7, Devin Booker, 3. LeBron, Steph, and Giannis are already ineligible. So this list I have in front of me has the 5 Vegas favorites preseason to win the MVP. Might give it to like Mitchell or something. I have no idea who's
Right?
going to win this award.
Yeah. I mean, I did see an odds maker send me a list that had Donovan at the top, and that to me shows that to this point in the season hasn't been serious basketball.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it were, you would see someone kind of distancing themselves in that regard. I would struggle giving it to Donovan over honestly several guys in the league, but as we've talked about, you have to be on the floor for that to matter.
Yeah.
And I've also long talked about how we should have maybe some regular season rewards, all NBA, whatever. The most valuable player award should be given out in June, late June, maybe July.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking over this list. It is a wild potential to have like the 9 or 10 favorites to win the MVP award all being eligible because of your games played situation. All right, we'll catch a quick break. My guy Adam Miklich is going to join us coming up next. We'll get back to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Don't forget pregame coverage for Utah Hoops begins at 6:30. Iowa State is in town for a 7 o'clock tip, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, tomorrow night at 10:35 on KMYU. It is, no, excuse me, on Thursday night, 10:35 KMYU. It's episode 2 of Talking Real, myself and Brian Dunseth, so we'll have that for you. Typically, we have Dave Fox join us live in studio, but Dave is currently riding a roller coaster screaming like a child in Disneyland. So we have upgraded to my guy, Adam Mikulich, live in studio. What's up, man? How are you?
What's up, bud? Thanks for having me today.
No, I appreciate you coming in. I know you're a TV guy, but the radio space is just a little more relaxing, right? We can actually have extended conversations. I will tell you this. I have gained a new respect for you guys in your space after now having a couple of months of TV experience. They really are two different skill sets, aren't they?
Completely different skill sets. Mm-hmm. One of the great things about coming in here, like you mentioned, is it's just so relaxed.
Yeah.
Last time I did one of these with you, unfortunately, it was over a phoner where I'm pacing back and forth in an empty hallway.
Mm-hmm.
But you asked me a little bit more about myself, and I shared kind of for the first time ever. I mean, I don't typically thrust myself on people unless it's prompted. And I got so much good feedback in the community.
Good.
I mean, a couple of your producers came up to me and they were like, "Adam, we never knew that you were such an interesting guy." You know, because I don't talk about myself that much, but I really appreciate your medium and to fill the amount of time that you guys do. One of the biggest differences is TV is we're trying to keep everything under a time constraint. Here, it's long format. You can talk, and it's a really nice, relaxing atmosphere.
Yeah, and I actually intentionally, much to the chagrin of Porter, who I put in a horrible spot, I don't pay much attention to the clock, and it's intentional, and I'll tell you why.
Probably a good way to do things, yeah.
Well, when I got back into the space, because I was out of the space for a couple of years, and for 2 years I was podcast only, and that was, we're in our 7th year of this show now, so this was 7 years ago, and what was easy to see is the ability to consume the spoken word was moving online and was moving into digital spaces, and you have to meet people where they are, meaning their cell phone. And so what that ultimately said to me is I need to encourage my audience to go find what I do in long form online. I love the fact that there are people listening to us right now making their commute home and driving around town. We need those people. But really, the other portion of the audience I try to capture is if you get home and you didn't have time to listen to the show today, you pull up the podcast page and you see like, oh, a 30-minute conversation with Adam Mikulich. That's the guy from KUTV. I've never really heard like much about him before. And then you go walk the dog or you go mow the lawn. And you can listen to a 30-minute conversation with Adam. So when I intentionally had the approach of trying to bring a podcast feel to live sports talk radio. Whether it's worked or not, you know, that's just kind of how I approach it. And so instead of talking about like a hot button topic, I just want to kind of have a conversation with somebody who I like and respect.
Yeah, well, the respect is mutual, obviously, and I love coming on your show. I wanted to give a shout out to my my mailman, Tom.
Shout out, Tom.
So I moved into my little oasis in Rose Park right before the pandemic got serious. So it was April of 2020. So we had done a little shelter in place at the time. But we had, remember that push to kind of come out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And speed things up a little bit. What a great time in your life to own a house for the first time.
Sure.
So I had no end of projects to keep me busy, and I was having so much fun doing it. And I'm not a real handy guy with tools. My parents are terrific at that stuff. They maintained an old home when we were growing up. The house that I grew up in was built in the late 1800s.
Okay.
And so all the home improvements, all the updates, they were able to do that on their own. I grew up working on farms. And that was the first, the first form of work and the easiest form of work in my hometown of Snohomish, Washington. I have a little bit of a green thumb. So all my energy when I bought my house was kind of channeled into fixing my yard, trimming the hedges, and trying to make it look really pleasing to the eye because it's important to me that when people drive by, they say, that's a nice looking place. And so my neighbor Tom, the way he tells the story, so he's got a new tenant that he's delivering mail to. And on one fateful day, he's listening. He's a religious ESPN 700 fan.
Oh, nice.
Huge University of Utah.
What's up, Tom?
Yeah, he's a big Utah football fan. So as he's listening to Spence with Adam Mikulich on the radio, he's delivering mail to a guy named Adam Mikulich. And there's not that many Mikuliches in Salt Lake City.
Sure, yeah.
Hey, if you're out there right now, let me know, but I don't think there's even one because I probably would have heard of it by now. But all these years later, he calls me the GOAT.
Love it.
So when he sees me mowing the lawn, when we actually have the time to chat and talk for a while, he says, hey, there he is, the GOAT. And this is great, too. So I think right about Christmas time, I get a big padded manila folder out of nowhere with no return address or stamp on it in my mailbox. And I was like, well, what the heck could this be? And I open it up, and it's a Luke Falk football card from when he was at Washington State University, and it's one of those ones that's autographed.
Nice.
And so he just wrote me a really nice note that said, hey, I thought this guy was going to amount to a whole lot more. I'm sad that he didn't, but I know you're such a great Coug. So he dropped it off for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
And right on the envelope, it said, to the GOAT.
Love it.
Yeah, so
Love
shout out to Tom. He's just an awesome guy. And by the way, my return gift for him, I haven't had a chance to see him or chat with him yet. I'm going to give him my Las Vegas Bowl socks that I got at Morgan Scalley's debut as a head coach at Utah. So, Tom, those are coming to you. Don't be a stranger. I love talking to this guy.
I love that. See, one of the things that I think is unique about this medium is because, and I'm not saying everybody listens to all 4 hours, obviously. Like, if you do, thank you, but holy smokes, like, that's amazing.
That's commitment.
Right. But if there's any sort of extended portion of a conversation that people listen to, I find it interesting that they think that they really know you on a personal, intimate level. Yeah, right? Because with television, due respect, it's a quick snapshot, and you're not taking time tonight on Talking Jazz to tell a story about your upbringing because you've got a 7 or 8 minute segment where you're going to bring Lauren in. What do we need to know? How's the team doing? Right? And so it's not like – and it's a very difficult thing that you make look really easy. I'm not like knocking on one to build the other one up. But I've often found it interesting if I happen to be in the grocery store or whatever and I run into somebody, they know intimate details about me and my life and my son because I try to approach it authentically. I'm not afraid to share things that I've been through or I've gone through. I feel like if you talk about it, the old thing like make your mess your message, right? People will hear it and resonate and maybe appreciate it. So I've always tried to do that. And it does lead to people having this like intimate connection with you. So that story about your mailman, I think is very cool, very telling. Yeah.
The way that we kind of equate it in television, think of it this way. And unfortunately, we're losing viewers left and right. It's just the way things go.
Sure.
Yeah. The more active generation was the first one to get mobile apps on their phones. So it's kind of a beautiful thing. People are quicker to get the forecast quick and go out and enjoy the evening in the park rather than watching the 6 o'clock news.
Sure.
It wasn't always like that. In my household, we tuned in for the 6 o'clock news every single night. We started making dinner after that. People think of television personalities as somebody who just comes to their living room once a night and tells them what's going on in the sporting world or the news world.
Yeah.
And so it's like an old friend of the family. So it's so funny when I'm walking through the grocery store, I'll get it left and right. What's up, Adam? Hey, Adam. Hey, Adam. Hey, it's the GOAT, for
Love
example.
Love it. Yeah.
They just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's not, I want a picture. Can you sign something for me? Can I talk your ear off about the Utah Jazz for a half hour? They just think of you like an old friend who shows up.
I love that. Cool? Yeah, no, that's great. What so you referenced you grew up in a kind of farming community, and that's how you made your way through your younger years working on a farm. Must have been a great way to learn work ethic, I'll tell you that much. What's the bridge between Adam Mikulich working on a farm and Adam Mikulich on TV talking sports?
Again, I appreciate you asking questions about myself. My parents encouraged me to grow up and do whatever the heck I wanted to. And honestly, coming from a military family, my grandfather Walt on the Mikulich side fought in World War II. My grandfather Fred on the Lucan side of the family, and that's my mom's maiden name, fought in World War II. And so my dad grew up an Army brat. And he actually did a military high school in St. Paul, Minnesota. He went to St. Norbert College, which is a really distinguished military academy in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's a collegiate program. And I always thought that my path was going to lead me into the military. And when my dad told me, no, that's not necessarily set in stone. You can do whatever you want to. I always wanted to be a sportscaster because my mom's little brother, Rick, is a famous sportscaster in Spokane who most recently worked at an ESPN affiliate that was kind of the flagship station for Gonzaga.
Okay.
And so growing up with somebody who was an active television personality, it just becomes a little more realistic. Like, if he can actually do this, why couldn't I? And so I did. I got my first job, I think, it was the summer before my freshman year in high school. I picked spinach for an entire summer.
Okay.
Really interesting job. They would take all of us into a bus and drive us near and far just to go through fields and pick up a certain, oh gosh, not to give you too much agricultural knowledge, but the female plants are the ones that you want to grow and you want to eat.
Oh, okay.
You target the male plants, pick them up, rip them, and just throw them back on the ground. That's a job that you can actually have, at minimum wage back at that time.
Okay.
I bought my first set of skis with the money I raised from picking spinach.
Okay.
So, again, I can't say enough about the upbringing and the opportunities my parents gave me. My uncle set a really good example. And then Washington State University is a top-tier communications program right in the state of Washington, and state tuition was really affordable. I just went after it, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I rolled all my eggs into that basket. I was a failed high school athlete, so that's another avenue of my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the last intelligible thing I can remember my grandfather saying to me before he had a series of strokes, and he kind of learned he lost his ability to talk, which was an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
But he said to me, "You have developed an incredible work ethic, and that will take you anywhere you want to go."
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of used that work ethic to get to where I wanted to be.
No, it's great. It's great. And I've always been jealous of people that knew at a young age what they wanted to do.
I was about 11 years old.
See, I honestly still don't. I mean,
you haven't grown up yet.
Well, I mean, I've been doing this 20 years now, so this is what I do. But there are days where I'm like, can I be the lead singer of a rock band? Like, whatever it is. Can I start writing songs? You know, like whatever it is. I've always been jealous of people that knew at a young age what they wanted to do. I always just like, my whole thing was like, stay open, stay curious, and then just find your way, find your path. I tried a bunch of things. This felt natural. And, 20 years later, it really has become my career. It's interesting we have you in today because we were talking about a piece from The Athletic, and Chris Kamrani joined us earlier. And the piece was done through the prism of how we are preparing ourselves for the potential of Major League Baseball.
I read it yesterday. Yep.
All right, perfect. Yep. And ultimately what it is a conversation about how much we have grown and how much we have changed. And you've been here how long now, Adam?
Going on my 16th. It'll be 16 in July.
Yeah, so this is perfect. Okay, this is perfect. You're the perfect guy for this because you're not from here, but you've become basically a local. Yeah. And you've had kind of a front row seat for just the way the city has changed, the way the community has changed, the way that it's grown. When I use the term diversified, it feels a little weird because all that means is there are less LDS people because there's still a ton. We are a very whitewashed place. So everyone's like, hey, we're so much more diverse. I'm like, yeah, okay, but still look around. It's mostly just white people, Anglo-Saxon white people. But, the last census, Salt Lake proper, less than 30% LDS. Salt Lake and Summit County are a blue dot in a red sea. There have been some changes, and I would call it progress. Certain people would disagree, and I'll leave that there. How have you seen this place change now on the precipice of potentially welcoming in our third, if not fourth, major league sport?
I think you're absolutely right. And honestly, my introduction to Salt Lake City goes even a little bit further back. I think the first time I came here to cover something, it would have been April of 2005. I came down to cover a Jazz game from Pocatello, Idaho Falls, because that was my first on-air market. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved this city. I think it's an absolutely terrific place, but it was still the smallest little big town in America at the time. You could still get any place you wanted to go in 10 minutes. And I'm talking Sandy to Salt Lake City. That might be a little bit sparing, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
But no further to the way we have traffic jams now for how much this place has grown. It's become very popular. And Ryan Smith has absolutely put us on the radar with all his hard work and diligence, but it goes even a little bit further back. The success of sports programs dictates to the fever pitch around town and also the attraction of people like college students who want to come here. When the University of Utah's football program got better and better, it became more attractive to college kids. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. Then they come here and see what a great city it is, how easygoing it is, and you instantly fall in love with this place. Mm-hmm. So I've seen the growth, just it's been absolutely crazy. And then look at the way people have embraced the Utah Mammoth. It's absolutely just completely floored me how all in people are when it comes to it. So, and then, don't forget, it was Frank Layden who said to me, the first time, I expected this to be a basketball town when I got here. Not that it's not a great basketball town, but it's become a football town.
Yeah.
And that has everything to do with the success of BYU at Utah. And then since I've been here too, I should have maybe led with this. I have experienced the best era in Utah State football history and made lasting relationships with Gary Anderson, with Matty Wells, Blake Anderson, as much as he would allow it. But I have witnessed the biggest time that alumni base, that fan base, those students have ever had before.
Well said. I want to give this guy credit. So the author is Stephen J. Nesbitt. You can find it on The Athletic or via the New York Times. Fake news. The headline is How Salt Lake City Evolved into a Sports Boom Town and Major League Baseball Expansion Frontrunner. You referenced a couple of things here. I'll just add a couple of like kind of side portions. The 2002 Winter Olympic Games, seminal moment for our market, seminal moment for our state, seminal moment for the way people viewed who we are.
Yeah.
And it was my first job. Like I said, I never thought I'd be in media, but I was a venue manager for the Salt Lake Ice Center out of college. I was a young father, a young husband, running on no sleep and way too much caffeine, but an unbelievable experience to be part of running that venue where we had short track speed skating and figure skating.
All right.
Right? So it was awesome. Now, Governor Cox talked about this in the athletic piece where back then and I can tell you this being part of the workforce, there was kind of this feel of like, this is awesome. Can we do this? This is such a great opportunity. Are we up for it? And to see how up for it we were was an unbelievable thing to be a part of. And then how we showed ourselves to the world. I left that experience with a ton of pride. And anybody I think involved, whether it's volunteers, if you drove a van, if you changed garbage bags, you were part of it. We had great concerts downtown. It was unbelievable games, great gold medal hockey game that then went to Canada. Even we got ours this year. And that started this growth where people started to look at us a little bit differently, like, maybe I should give that place a second chance. Because the fact of the matter is this, and I'm sure you've run into this now. If you travel around America and you sit down at a bar or a restaurant and you strike up a conversation and they say, where are you from? You say, I live in Utah. Yeah. What do they ask you? Are you Mormon?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they ask you because that's what people equate Utah with. Is that a bad thing? No. Does it bring some sort of preconceived notions about it? Probably. And I think Salt Lake, the Olympic Games, were a way for us to bring this place some exposure that's like, yeah, this isn't some weird podunk cult town that you're not safe in. LDS people are kind folk. You're going to be fine here. And that's not all there is if you're not looking for that. Right? So that was kind of this beginning of us being exposed in a different way. The point you bring up about Utah football cannot be understated. 2 Rose Bowls equate to about 36 million eyes that you don't have otherwise, which equates to people enrolling in school. I live up by campus now. California license plates all over the place. These are out-of-state people now coming in to attend the University of Utah. So I think it's been a confluence and combination of events that have led us to this moment where I feel like the next 10 years, if you're a sports fan and you live in Utah, you should be really excited.
Yeah, and I do have a ton of pride. Like my mom always says to me when I go home, I kind of brag about it here because I have seen so much development over the course of 15 years. And she always says, how cool is it that you wound up in a place where you feel so comfortable? And I really do love it here. Mm-hmm. And it's an underrated live music town, Spence.
Sure it is, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I used to, when I lived out in Murray, I used to commute up and down State Street every single day to and from my job. And I would pass the stateroom. Shout out to my people at the stateroom. Mm-hmm. And finally, one day, I found out that the music I was listening to on KRCL, shout out to KRCL, and I found out that a band I was listening to was on the facade advertising that they were going to be in town. So
nice.
I went up and bought a $10 ticket one day, and I thought, this is exactly my kind of place. And then I started seeking out the other places. I didn't know a place like Red Butte existed in the entire world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where you can take a cooler in,
yep,
pack a lunch, pack some beverages, sit down on grass with like-minded people. And it's one of the most beautiful concert venues I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
There are so many things working in this place. And not to mention, it is an all-out outdoor paradise.
Yeah.
My thing is fly fishing. I had to give it up when I left Southeast Idaho, did 2.5 years in Champaign, Illinois. I came driving in hot and then running as fast as I could to the river to get a line in. And I spent the first 10 years of my life here. If I wasn't on the river, I was thinking about being on the river. Everybody that moves to this place typically does, and if they don't, they should find an outdoor activity because you're just wasting it away if you don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just like so ready-made for an event like the Winter Olympics.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we just are coming off this Winter Olympic cycle that I thought was awesome.
I think there was a fever pitch that I haven't felt in a very long time.
Yeah.
You and I talked about it on Sunday night on Adam and Spence. Shout out to Talking Sports, Sunday nights, 10:35. We talked about how right now hockey is resonating through this country. I feel like bigger than ever before. You had a team show up in Seattle just recently, Vegas just recently, 2 major sports markets, and one of the up-and-coming, just now getting recognized as a major sports market, Salt Lake City, gets a hockey team. So it has spread out west, and I think it's just catching fire.
Yeah, and it will be interesting because it's 46 years since the Miracle on Ice. So as long as AI doesn't make humans useless and render us all completely, irrelevant, in 46 years, hopefully we're all still doing the thing. I really wonder what we'll talk about in 46 years about what this moment means for hockey, because I do think hockey has an opportunity in front of itself in a small way because of the way the NBA has decided to basically fall on its face for a couple of different reasons. Now we'll see if they can rectify it. The latest data we have, the Gallup poll, the last time it was taken as far as what is your favorite sport as an American, football is 1. Basketball is still 2. Soccer just passed baseball is 3. Baseball is 4, and now hockey is 5, but making some inroads. Golf is actually this weird, quick-growing behemoth that people are into. Hence us on the television having simulator golf on live right now. People actually watch pro golfers hit on simulators now. But hockey has this opportunity where there are no nights off in the NHL. They don't exist. If you try to take a night off in the NHL, the repercussion is you break your face because the other guy will skate over you. Okay, so you have employees that show up for work. You have players that show up and play hard every night. And the NBA just doesn't have that as it pertains to the consistency. It has it here or there. Like San Antonio, Detroit last night was awesome. But Utah, Houston was not because the Jazz are unserious about trying to compete. It's this weird thing that the NBA has right now that hockey has the opportunity, I think, to slide in and take some of the attention.
I love where you're going with this. And this goes back to something that we did talk about again on Sunday night. Think about this. In the last 10 years in this country, we've been through some difficult economic times. Mm-hmm. Politically, we're in very, very difficult times. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've gotten back to an appreciation for the blue-collar human being more so than ever before. Mm-hmm. So pro athletes make millions and millions of dollars. They drive fancy cars. They wear swanky clothes. They wear sunglasses when they do interviews and post-game and stuff like that. Hockey players don't do that. They're blue-collar. They skate around with no teeth because it's not wise to get teeth replaced during the season. You do that in the off-season or you do it when you retire. Mm-hmm. They don't shave. Their hair is long. They talk like normal human beings. They sign autographs. Spence, mm-hmm. It's a no-brainer why it's happening.
Right.
Who are we admiring in this country if we're not admiring the hardworking people? Maybe Canadians had the right idea the whole time.
Well, yeah, and to see how much Sunday morning meant to that team.
Yeah.
When the U.S. men's hockey team won the gold medal for the first time in 46 years. And to see the pure, unadulterated joy after Jack scores the goal.
For a group of guys who had only been together for a short time.
But are also highly paid professionals, right? So, they also are very wealthy people that maybe could be a little bit leathery towards a moment. Absolutely not. Yeah. The joy, the expression, the tears, the laughter. Now we know why. 5 years ago, the NHL kind of had a sneaky battle with their CBA. It wasn't as seamless as most people thought. But there was a movement behind the scenes of about 20 to 22 NHL owners that said, I don't want my players playing international tournaments anymore. It's too much of a risk. They could get hurt. And then that hurts my bottom line. And the players went double bird and said, we are dying on this hill. We are playing in the Olympics. And I think on Sunday you saw why they wanted it so bad.
They left it all out there. I think it's just awesome. I mean, I all the time I spent working on broadcast crews with the Utah Grizzlies in the ECHL with our friend Adrian Denny, who's just an absolute piece.
Shout out, AD.
I mean, I got to see those guys up close and personal, and they work so hard, and it is the smelliest locker room I've ever smelled in my entire life.
My gosh.
Because they sweat so profusely.
Yes.
These guys work hard.
No human on earth smells worse than a hockey player after a hockey game. I can promise you that. Hey, we'll end on this, and I'll set you loose. You had a very cool I'll say an opportunity, but you also capitalized on it. I'll take us back a few months. All right. Email comes out. I'm actually getting ready to do the show. It's just after 2:00. Intro's playing in my ear, our bumper music that I play every day. Getting ready to do the show. And Porter's like, hey, check the email. Email comes in. Kyle Whittingham has stepped down as Utah's football coach. Okay. And I went, I'm on air live. I'm like, okay, well, we're blowing out the rundown. I'm having Porter book different guests. I'm like, okay, the next 4 hours are only about this, only about Whit. Then you see the tweet from Mandel. Oh, he's not retiring. He still wants to coach. And then we're kind of changing gears to cover the story. Like, wait, maybe he's not done. Sharon Moore loses his job in spectacular fashion. And then a few days later, Kyle Whittingham lives in Ann Arbor. So that whole thing was it's still wild for me to say that. But what that led to is the moving over of a seat that was inevitable of Morgan Scalley. You had a chance to be at his first game and actually get the first interview with him after the game. So kind of take us in that moment, because we are the home of the Utes. What was that like for you to experience?
Oh, it was absolutely terrific. And I woke up that day. I was the only reporter that made it down there. You know, a few of the other stations sent some photographers. But I was working down there with one of our newest faces, Hu Tran, who's a producer and photographer for us. I was not taking no for an answer. So I covered my bases because I believe in manners, and I texted a few people in sports information at the U, and it was a nice little coup, too, that we knew that they were going to win by midway through the third quarter. You could just kind of feel the tide had turned. So I just sent a real casual email. Hey, just so you guys know, I really would like to go spray some interviews after this is done. I won't get in the way of any kind of celebration whatsoever. So I wasn't taking no for an answer. And so when Morgan, just to give credit where credit's due, he did an interview for the broadcast crew for the trophy presentation first.
Yeah.
The minute he came down those risers, I did my old Nick Raimondo trick when I used to try and get post-game interviews with him at RSL games, and I just kind of put my arm around his neck, and I said, "We're here from Salt Lake City. Let's talk to your people." And he goes, "Let's do it."
Yeah, love it.
So that's a huge. I mean, honestly, your adrenaline peaks a little bit, and you just get overcome by this feeling of joy when you realize you've landed the interview. And I kept him for about 4 minutes, and I asked those heartfelt questions that I try to always ask.
Well, and you caught him in this moment where there wasn't a lot of coach speak. He just was like enjoying
it was raw emotion.
Yeah, it was emotion. He was enjoying the moment. They had just won. And I think he realized, like, holy smokes, I'm the guy now. Finally, after all these years, I'm the head coach of Utah. And you caught him in this moment where he didn't give you the whole, like, you played hard, ran hard, tackled. No, he gave you a piece of Morgan, which I think that's what this community needed to see.
Yeah, I don't know any other way. And anybody out there who wants to do what I do, wants to do what Spence does. I mean, envelop yourself in what's going on. Allow yourself to get emotional about it.
Yeah.
So empathy is an easy thing for me. I was raised right. I mean, I have wonderful parents who I always felt loved in my household. I always felt appreciated.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I had a place at the table. What I thought, what I said mattered. And so I allowed myself in that moment covering that game to get caught up in the excitement. I'm also saying goodbye to a lot of seniors that I've known since, a lot of them were in high school.
Sure, yeah.
A kid like Lander Barton, I've known him since he was at Brighton. I know his older brothers. I know his older sister. She's a former Prep of the Week. So in that moment, I tried to cut to the core of Morgan and, let's not make this an X's and O thing. Let's not talk about your predecessor the whole time. Let's talk about what a big moment this is for you and your family.
Yeah.
And that's an easy thing for somebody to talk about.
Oh, it was well done, man.
I really appreciate that. Coming from you, that means a lot. And I don't take that stuff lightly. When we wrapped up our live shot that day, I was riding really high in the saddle.
Yeah.
It's hard to come down from experiences like that. That's why I don't sleep a lot.
Yeah, no. Look, a lot of us in this business are not great sleepers. But I know you got to get going because you got work to do. What's coming up tonight, 10:35 KMYU?
Okay, 10:35. It's a fresh edition of Talkin' Jazz. This is a show that you co-host with Dave quite a bit. So we've got the wonderful Lauren Green with us. She's a member of our broadcast crew at K-Jazz. She grew up to have a job that most young men and women, when they get into this industry, want to have: courtside, pregame, half game, and postgame.
Yeah.
And she's the one doing live look-ins during broadcast sessions. She's incredibly smooth. She's a former college athlete, which it's really easy to talk to people who have athletic experience and they know what it's like to work and to bleed like an athlete does. And then one nice thing we've done, too, is it's not going to be the whole half-hour block tonight. We'll also get to BYU taking on Central Florida. We'll get to the Utes hosting Iowa State. And then the Salt Lake Bees made an announcement today, so we'll have the latest on that, too.
Dirty Soda tonight, KMYU, 10:35. Adam, good to see you. You're the man.
Hey, I had a great time being here.
For sure. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, Drive at 5 time on this Tuesday afternoon. Rainy, cloudy Tuesday afternoon. Still pretty warm. Feels spring-like. It's about 53, 52 degrees and raining here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, right outside of our Broadway media studios. Part of a week that's going to bring us a little bit of rain tomorrow as well. And then it's going to warm up over the weekend, and we are headed to sunny and 60 next week. Been an odd winter season. Looks like spring is going to come early, but spring kind of has stayed. So we're about to turn our calendars to March, coming up in just a few days. Happy Tuesday to you. Speaking of March, the Madness of March is not too far away. Selection Sunday, a couple of weeks away. We got some good college basketball tonight. Duke, who is now the overall number 1 seed in college basketball after beating Michigan last week. They're in action right now. They're taking on Notre Dame, a down season for Notre Dame. On the local scene, the Utah Utes welcome in Iowa State, a really good, talented, deep basketball team. Iowa State did lose to BYU in Provo over the weekend, and BYU will welcome in the team that beat Utah here in Salt Lake, UCF down in Provo. So the Utes begin at 7 o'clock. Reminder, our pregame coverage with Bill Riley and Sean Mooney, friends of the show. Ryle stopped by earlier. We'll get going at 6:30. You can watch the game on FS1. But as I do every time Utah basketball plays at home, if you do not have any Tuesday night plans, you could do worse than going to the Huntsman Center and supporting our friend Alex Jensen and the Utah Utes trying to make their way through Big 12 play. Year one under Al has been tough. The past few games have been better. A good win on the road against West Virginia and nearly getting UCF at home. We talked about this earlier, hoping that the momentum for Utah basketball would carry over from the West Virginia win. And it's not entirely correct to say that it didn't, but I'm not a moral victory guy, as you know. I don't cover games through the prism of moral victories. UCF, certainly if they can get a win tonight in Provo, that'd be a quad 1A win for them. But they're right on the precipice of being an NCAA tournament team. 3 of the top 5 teams in college basketball reside in the Big 12. As the AP rankings tell us, Ken Palm tells a pretty similar story, as do the rankings for the Madness of March, the NCAA tournament, with Arizona, Houston, Kansas, and honestly, I should say Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, your 3 top 5 teams. Kansas with Darren Peterson, a healthy and engaged Darren Peterson, is a Final Four contending team. They smoked Houston last night. Now, Houston, who I picked to win the league, has now lost 3 straight games. This conference is a bear. Iowa State is as talented, almost, I would say, on paper, as any team in this league, and it is going to be a difficult one for Utah. They are a big-time underdog. Iowa State has a kid who's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, certainly a lottery pick, in Joshua Jefferson, who is very complete. He is a very big, long guard who does a bit of everything. I would guess Sidhu Traore is going to draw that assignment. Jefferson averages 16 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, shoots about 37% from 3, and is a dangerous, dangerous weapon. So Utah basketball, we have seen incremental improvement. Again, I do not cover these things through the prism of moral victories, but the past 5-6 games, they've been one of the top 5-6 defenses in the league. They held Kansas under their season average, did the same thing at Houston and Cincinnati. Of course, beat West Virginia, held West Virginia to a season low 56. And UCF is one of the top 5-6 offensive teams in the conference, and Utah limited them to 73. So tonight's going to be a tough ask. It's going to be a big-time upset if Utah's going to get this done. So it'll be tough sledding for Alex Jensen and the boys, but don't forget our pregame coverage will begin at 6:30. Now, for BYU's side of things, of course, featuring the current Vegas favorite to win both the Naismith Player of the Year and now, as of today, your Vegas favorite to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. A.J. DeBonsa moved past Darren Peterson. Vegas odds to be the number 1 overall pick. They beat Iowa State over the weekend in Provo without Richie Saunders, and it is the first quad 1A win that they have all year long. 6-6 in quad 1 opportunities. The first win they have over a ranked Big 12 team. The first top 10 ranked win they have at home since Gonzaga a number of years ago. That was a statement win. It was the win BYU needed on their resume. Now, I still feel like they're probably trending towards a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, but opportunities to improve that, of course, not just with UCF tonight. They'll be at West Virginia, at Cincinnati. Then they're going to close out the final game of the season against Texas Tech. And then, of course, you have the Big 12 tournament. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be tough to expect Utah to do much in the Big 12 tournament. Over the final 4 games, as I said, tonight is a bear. They're a massive underdog against a team on paper that has Final Four talent at Arizona State, home against Colorado, at Baylor. Get a couple of those. Maybe get 2 of those 3. And look, no one's going to hang a banner if you win 4 league games, but end the year with a little bit of momentum. Figure out which of these players you want back next year. The unfortunate reality is how many of these players want to be back next year. I mean, Terrence Brown may have played his way into a contract where he leaves Utah. And this ultimately is the portion of the program where I beg and plead from this pulpit for some rich donor or booster who cares about basketball to help Alex out. Because if BYU is going to pay more for one player than Utah is for their entire roster, expectations have to be tempered entirely. If Texas Tech is going to outspend Utah for talent on paper with their basketball team times 5 or 6, like, what exactly are we doing here? It's the reality of the sport now. It feels like the football program getting the support that they need. Of course, a lot of people believe they need more. Will the new private equity deal with Otro Capital provide that? Only time will tell. I can promise you this. If you think the football team needs more support, the basketball team badly needs somebody to write checks to help them pay for talent. You have to pay players now. You have to. We can yell about it all we want. We can complain about it all we want. If you don't lean into the reality of what's happening, you will be left behind. And you can tell every night watching this team that the checks aren't being written for talent. They're just not. And that has to change this offseason for Alex Jensen to be able to keep up with his peers across the landscape of the Big 12, which I believe to be the best college basketball conference in America. Tonight, but we've got some good NBA hoops. Peacock will have the Knicks and the Cavs. That is in Cleveland, Rocket Arena. That's probably the premier matchup of the night. The Thunder-Raptors game might be okay. Celtics Suns, Dylan Brooks is out. So is Jason Tatum. No, that is the best game. The best game of the night is Knicks Cavs. Jazz played last night, kind of. They got trucked by Houston. But the one piece of news that came out is that Vince Williams Jr., who was acquired alongside Jaren Jackson Jr., and I believe he was acquired as part of this team's future, has torn his ACL. It was a play last night where it was a fast break for Houston. And if you were watching it live, you saw Tari Eason and Vince Williams Jr. jockeying for a position. And then suddenly it looked like Vince just fell. And then upon the replay, Tari Eason hip checked him. I mean, Will Hardy afterwards called it a non-basketball play. And as a result of that contact, Vince fell awkwardly, and you saw his knee lock up. And instantly you go, oh, man, that looks really, really bad. Well, news comes out today that the poor young man has torn his ACL, and it's a little bit more than meets the eye. It's too bad for Jazz fans that he's a good player. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's not a starter, but he's a rotational piece that you like to play 18 to 20 minutes a night, guard the other team's best perimeter scorer. He's not a great shooter, but he's improved as an offensive player. Like, he's an NBA player. But there were questions coming out of college whether or not he could ever be that. And he's worked his ass off for this moment. He's worked his ass off for this moment because it's a contract year for him. So this doesn't just hurt because we won't be able to watch him over the final 25 games. Last night may have cost Vince Williams Jr. generational wealth. Like millions and millions this moment. Otherwise, the game was irrelevant because the Jazz are unserious. Have you ever had I guess we're calling them dirty sodas. Have you ever had one?
One time. I was subjected to the drive-thru at a unnamed local joint. And, I got a dirty Dr. Pepper.
What, do you remember what was in it in addition to the Dr. Pepper? What the flavoring was?
The problem is it was like Dr. Pepper already has like the 23 flavors, the secret cherry, caramel. Like, I can't remember what the secret 23 flavors are, but I found out one time it was one of the flavors that's already in Dr. Pepper. So it just tasted like an extra sugary Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
I think it had cherry in it.
So I'm conflicted here. Let's unpack this for a moment. If you're wondering why we're discussing this, the Salt Lake Bees today, shout out to our friends of the Salt Lake Bees, and they are our friends.
Yes.
They are our friends, but I want to remind you that sometimes the best friend that you need is the one that can grab you by your shirt collar and tell you to stop behaving like an idiot.
And
we all need that. We all need a friend like that, Porter.
And sometimes when friends move away, they fray.
Did you mean to rhyme there?
No.
Or okay, well,
No,
well
sorry.
done. No, I mean, you're not wrong. They did leave us, and I do drive by that ballpark, and it does make me sad.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The Utes and the Bees are not currently playing there. So
Yeah, correct. So the Salt Lake Bees announced bold, sweet, a little dirty. Huh? See what they're doing there? Introducing the Utah Dirty Sodas, the latest alternate identity from the Salt Lake Bees, celebrating the unique Beehive State beverage. UtahDirtySodas.com. We'll give our friends some love. Go check them out. And so what began as a drink has become a tradition. What began as a game becomes a gathering. This season, the Salt Lake Bees are introducing the Utah Dirty Sodas, a new alternate identity that blends Utah's iconic dirty soda culture with America's pastime in bold, playful, and unmistakably local way. Utah's iconic dirty soda culture is the part of that phrase that really is irking me. There's nothing iconic about having a culture that's steeped in dirty soda. That can't be our thing.
I'll back you up on that.
Like
A marketing partnership, let's be clear what these things are, totally fine with me. A culture in sugar poison's not really my thing.
Yeah, it can't be. It's not iconic. I'm sorry. All due respect. Hey, look, if that's your thing, we all have our thing, right? Charles Bukowski, the great poet, find something you love and let it kill you. Don't do that, but he did write that, okay? So something is going to put all of us in the ground. Sorry, kids, we're all going to die at some point.
Yeah.
And if your deal is dirty soda, then your deal is dirty soda. But we've been talking all show about what appears to be a very intentional endeavor by some to dispel notions about how weird Utahns are. This is not helping that. If you're calling our culture a iconic culture of dirty soda, then folks around the country are just going to be like, dude, what is going on out there?
As they already are,
Yes.
a little bit sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, there is like a cultural tie since there's no coffee with the predominant religion here. Like there is a soda thing here. There's a reason there's one of those drive-thrus every other block.
For sure.
But I don't know that we need to lean into it. Like the Florida guy thing, Florida man headlines. I feel like they lean into that.
They do. They do.
I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it culturally, believe me, my family members, they enjoy themselves some soda. And, the dichotomy of actually the health benefits of coffee and the lack of health benefits of soda is not something we're going to dig into on the Sports Talk Radio show. But the seasonal favorites going on right now, Cupid's Crush,
Okay.
Dr. Pepper, cherry, raspberry, strawberry, puree, and vanilla cream for Valentine's.
That one sounds kind of good.
We got a little Heartthrob, Big Red Cream Soda, vanilla, strawberry, excuse me, vanilla, strawberry puree, and vanilla cream. That's going on right now. Let's see. The best seller currently. Oh, these are all Dr. Pepper sodas.
There we go.
Okay. Shout out Dr. Pepper.
If you're going to drink soda, at least go with the doctor.
I like a little Diet Dr. Pepper myself. The Bliss is Diet Coke, Cranberry, Fresh Lime. I feel like the Diet Coke were probably going to be the best sellers. Did you know anybody that drank Mountain Dew when you were younger?
Me.
Oh, that stuff is straight poison, dude.
a nice cold mountain. Listen, we've gone on like a several-minute diatribe here about not being very into soda. That was not my my thought process when I was 14.
No,
just to be clear.
No, because none of us, like, I don't think you fully knew how bad soda was for you until you got older. I think my lunch, I either had a Snapple or like a root beer with a turkey sandwich, like a bag of Doritos.
Yeah, the artificial sugar thing hit me a little late. So if you would have seen me in, I want to say 2016, I was about 70 pounds heavier and not hitting the gym. I'll just say that.
The Beach Babe, Mountain Dew, raspberry, peach, and vanilla cream. That sounds, well, you'll have a lot of energy. There's that. Unlucky Ducky, Sprite, lemonade, strawberry, and gummy shark. Anyway, the other part of me that is hating on this industry is I feel like it's a business idea that was right in front of my face for years, and I just didn't capitalize on it. These people are my people. I have watched them drink copious amounts of soda since I was a child. I have an aunt that said to me out loud, I never drink water. She used to call it pop. I only drink pop. That's it. We go to her house, and there's no water. There's no water anywhere. Open the fridge, it's all soda. That's it. You go to the pantry, she called it soda pop. That was her thing. May she rest in peace. But never drunk, no water, just soda. This business idea was in front of my face, and I dropped the ball, man. I blew it. That's what it comes down to.
The sugar cookie thing, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of those business ideas that were very clear, but like you just need to add one little thing to it, right?
Yeah.
The addition of a squirt of whatever the flavor is now making it a completely different event. And then you throw something that is, as a doctor will tell you, as addictive as many Schedule I drugs. Hey, you're gonna have a good business plan.
I'll tell you what, when I went down to hang out with my people down in Provo for the Utah-Houston game, had a lovely flavored Fresca of some sort. I believe there was some cherry situations going on with my Fresca, so I enjoyed that. All right, finally, you remember the Untold series on Netflix? The most popular one around here is probably the Manti Te'o one.
Yeah, our good boy Kalen Jones.
That's right.
A part of Untold.
So they have released their upcoming series. Number one will be The Death and Life of Lamar Odom. Lamar revisits the infamous night at the Love Ranch that nearly cost him his life. Huh.
I was going to say, isn't he alive?
He's still alive, still kicking. That was a wild story, though, because he was there for, like, I think a week and a half. Like Chloe was trying to get to, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Chessmates, the story of Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann, that 2024 rematch following Niemann's highly controversial cheating scandal. The Jailblazers, hell yes. Early 2000 Portland Trail Blazers, Rasheed Wallace, Damon Stoudemire, Bonzi Wells. I loved that team, I'm not going to lie. The shooting at Hawthorne Hill, retired Olympic equestrian and his new student begin a feud that culminates in a shocking act of violence. I actually don't know about that one. So interesting. They do a really good job. We'll have to get Kalen on the show to talk about that.
You remember just since hockey was top of mind, did you see the Trashers one? That Northeast kid that just got he inherited a hockey team and went.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Went a little heel.
Yeah.
He was going to join the show one time.
Seriously.
Like when that was going on, and he ghosted me. So sorry about that.
That's messed up. He does not seem like the most pleasant, well-behaved fella. So I guess there's that.
I'll try again.
Please do. All right. We will catch a break, but coming up on the other side, don't go anywhere. It's time now for some Utah basketball. Iowa State in the house. Going to be a big one. It's going to be a tough one. Iowa State's really good. We'll see if Utah can kind of continue to improve step by step. But Porter, before we say goodnight, what comes our way on a Wednesday edition of the program?
A Wednesday edition of The Drive. Craig Bowlerjack stops by the program, as does Richard Smitty Smith. So plenty of Jazz and NBA talk. And then a few things still up in the air. One of them, likely Gavin Peterson of Utah women's basketball. Probably talking some RSL on a Wednesday as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So join us for a Wednesday show. We will get you halfway through that work week, and one day closer to the weekend. There's a really, really good slate of college basketball tonight, NBA basketball tonight as well. We will say goodnight and make way for Riles and Sean Mooney for some Utah basketball. Special thank you today to Chris Camerani, Bill Riley, Tim McMahon, and Adam Miklich for the sound of the show you missed. Website is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space, 4 hours every day, podcast page. Drive with Spence Checketts, available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. Reporter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Utah basketball comes up on the other side right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.